owed money in that way. It's such despicable behavior, truly.
Right, we're here for another episode of Snake and Banter. Our guest is a return guest. It is Nohte, who is a senior writer for HLTV.org and obviously been around the scene many, many years. And we always obviously start with whatever we think preamble is the spiciest topic. And actually, it's going to be his. So we're going to go straight to the bad section. I notice it's always the bad and the ugly. So we're going to the bad section. And what is bad right now? What's bothering you?
Yeah, so I went for the fact that we're getting more and more reports coming out of organizations, again, failing to pay players. So obviously we had Louise Mira at HLTV who did this whole big report about Passion UA owing multiple months of salary and buyouts to NRG. And there's basically been a lot of money owed over the couple of months since before Passion UA essentially disbanded their roster. And then after that, we've also had KRL, who recently put out a tweet about, 3D Max owing players a lot of money, like multiple millions potentially. And I know that, the former coach also just tweeted out, that he is owed a lot of money. It's not something that's just rumored anymore in that sense. At least the coach is confirming that he's owed money. And I know of at least one other notable organization in, let's say, the top 50 that owes players a lot of money as well, dating back over a year at this point. So the fact that this is happening in our scene still, and you're having it take this long for these rumors to come out, these reports to come out, obviously Kassad's famous bleed situation. So it's still happening, but to the degree that it's happening now is a little concerning to me, especially with the fact that some players and teams and organizations are pushing this so far down the road that they aren't willing to talk about it because they're hopeful they get paid at some point, right? So even with this Passion UA thing, I'm sure this was known for quite a while, but when there's hope of being paid and there's, the organization's telling you, it's coming in a month, it's coming in 2 months, you're still going to cling on to that hope when it's multiple tens of thousands of dollars that you might be owed. So the fact that we're seeing this so regularly occurring in the sense of there's multiple reports happening at the same time around it is a pretty net negative, I think, especially when you look at it in the context of the change in sticker money that's happened with the Cologne Major and the way that Valve tried to revamp that. I think you have orgs sometimes relying on sticker money to then make up the difference or potentially pay back some of what's owed. And when that got removed, you lose a lot of that ability to kind of make up the difference. And overall, I think the way all of that's combined recently is a big negative.
I don't have anything. Well, I'll say it is really frustrating to see that so many orgs even decide to just exist. I mean, I like the bleed situation, even what's going on with Passion UA, that they try to operate these orgs as if they're just loaded with funding, or especially with Passion's example, attached to a celebrity name, and then they aren't actually following up on what they owe people. It's just crazy to me that you could be associated with a Premier League player and then you're talked to in that fashion and that you're owed money in that way. It's such despicable behavior, truly. From it was from Zinchenko, right? It was like that's just, I mean, that's just the things he was saying were just downright. I mean, they have no place. And also it's kind of like, how is, if you're some sort of owner investor type of thing, it's not really even really your place to say these kinds of things at times. I think it's just such a odd airing of frustrations with his players. I think that esports as a whole, what I think the orgs don't want you to always know though is that if you are on the cusp of making it to the major, if you're one of those teams, before, I'd say with the RMR situation, it was actually a lot more player friendly because you could, and that's where this is really, really almost like an ugly point, more than a bad point to me, is that it's so fucked up that you're now for VRS. What was it? K27 said that they spent something like $40,000 to make sure that this team could go to these lands and play in Europe and everything. And that's just the investment to get VRS points. And they even said that what was the cost? Several $100s per VRS point, essentially, and not including player salaries. So what VRS has done is it almost opens up the possibility of more people or more bad actors sort of promising that they're going to pay you these amounts of money, and then you have to take it because you have to go to these lands in different places, and you can't fund yourselves doing that. And that was kind of one of the beautiful aspects of the RMR as well, is that all you had to do was make it through the open qualifier, closed qualifier. Then you're at a LAN. You're at a LAN. You can make it. You don't have to sustain yourself for consecutive seasons, because reminder, you really need to fight through this system for multiple seasons to even make it to the major. And now, even if you make it to the major, unless Valve changes their way of paying people with a different sort of sticker monetization system, you're still not even always making it all back, it seems. So this is kind of what Valve wanted, you know, the things we praised VRS for at the beginning, that, oh, you're going to have more orgs that stick around, you're going to have more like proper support, you're going to have less teams that are sort of flash in the pan. Like, people were ragging, of course, on like TSM, were for very you know, they obviously signed that roster with Valde, and it didn't really find any success, so they booed him. Yeah, obviously it wasn't no one's gonna say like, yay. Well, actually, I think people did say TSM's back, woohoo, or whatever. But in reality, anybody that's keeping their eyes on the scene or just really has any understanding of what's happening, it was just a cash grab attempt. But thankfully, I don't know, maybe it comes out. I don't know. I hope not. But TSM at least didn't. No one's Valde's not saying like, hey, we are not paid by TSM. They're legitimate enough in that sense that they were able to pay them their money, and they tried. But now you're having these orgs that are just coming in, and they're totally bad actors from day one, or very early on, as soon as the first couple months' salary are gone. And I think that people and players should heed the warnings that Kassad put out on Twitter. You know, have certain aspects to your contract that are just, if you don't get paid for X amount of time, you can terminate the contract. You just need to make sure you protect yourself in ways that you shouldn't. It feels like you shouldn't have to, and you would hope that in 2026, Counter-Strike Esports has gotten to a point that there is a little bit more formality with all this, but it's still the Wild West in many ways.
Two things quickly before you jump in, Thorin. One is, I wouldn't necessarily point to Valve's sticker change as being the reason that these orgs owe so much money, because that's just this most recent major. The amount of money that's been owed from these organizations dates back way longer than just this recent major. So for them already to be relying on a major payout to then even pay some of that difference is already an issue in and of itself. But on top of that, it's been ongoing for so long. Like, for 3D Max, you don't owe millions of dollars allegedly in just a couple of months. So this is something that's clearly gone on for a long time, right? So I think just that part of it is not necessarily on Valve for changing the system and, you know, removing the RMRs. That's a issue from the organization standpoint, where they have clearly overextended themselves in a way. The second thing quickly, just on the K27 point, Thorin, if you didn't see it, and for people who might be curious, they basically said they spent a month in Europe, and it cost them $46,000, which got them 218 VRS points, 14 positions in the Valve ranking and tier 1 event experience. And that's the only accounts for their hotel tickets and other money spending, not salaries. So average cost was $213 per 1 VRS point.
Okay. I will say I've actually got some angles on this that will maybe be a bit unique. So some of these things I've said on videos before, some of them I haven't. So one would be, first of all, one of the worst parts about this topic to me is that Passion UA aren't K27. They aren't some like little no-name org that had players you've never heard of from like, what country are they from? Remember, Passion UA, in recent memory, trying to qualify for the last major, had JT, Try, and Senzu all at the same time. Like, it's one of the reasons why, by the way, I kept using them as like the way to whip Liquid and fucking FaZe, because I would be like, FaZe would be going, well, we're now not supposed to believe this, but like, we haven't got the money. It'd be like, those guys are just available, mate. Like, why aren't they in your team? Why would they be in little Passion UA, that fucking team that isn't even a tournament? So already that was really suspicious. And here's why that's really worrying to me, Nohte, because what that makes it sound like is they just lied about how much they could pay. They just told someone like Senzo, I've got all this fucking money, mate. You want this? And obviously, as we all know, the real thing that gets your attention isn't the players that used to play for them. The joke is they're all in like bloody Fnatic now. That's now a Ukrainian team. Even that makes, I've never understood that one. Passion UA was like the X-Complexity players. Then Fnatic was Passion UA. It's like, what are we doing here? But anyway, branded in esports, nightmare. But the joke would be, the main thing, this is why half the drama about Passion UA is about Zinchenko's fucking involvement, isn't it? Because let's be real, absolutely, they used that guy as if he was the primary owner. It was even implied, if you go and read some of the statements, that he made the org. All the statements were like, I made the org for this. I wanted to build up and I wanted like a Ukrainian thing. And then when he left, if people don't know, which by the way, notice the timing of when he left, right before all this shit comes down with massive financial implications, which if you couldn't pay that, I agree, you knew that months and months out, mate. Like, usually that's not like overnight you come in like, what the hell's going on here? That's like some financial crisis shit where people knew ages ago and people are already like trying to get their way out of it or trying to reduce their responsibility. So in this case, it looks to me like he left in a very specific way, so he couldn't be blamed for this if he was an owner. Now, I'll be quite serious here, because in their statement when he left, it's outrageous, bro. All of a sudden, the guy going from, I did this and I want it becomes like, thanks for his partnership. He was a great like media partner. What are you they're making it sound like he was like the fucking official co-streamer or something, bro, which is already crazy work. But here's what's funny. I imagine that is actually not just a cover-up. That is probably closer to the truth. The problem Zinchenko has is he himself made statements which implied more than that. Now, if I had to guess, no, I would guess he was just a figurehead who someone was starting an org from his country, Ukraine, and they were like, look, I've got some backing. Here's what we'll do. You get like probably a small amount of equity and we'll say your names on it, and we'll also let you do it as if it's your passion project. You know, you can say, hey, it's something I did because I'm passionate about Ukrainian esports and I've always liked Counter-Strike, you know, because I'll tell you the obvious parallel. You might know this from a few years back. I actually did a 1 month of consulting with this org. Famously, Guild Esports announced themselves to the world by saying, this is an organization owned by David Beckham. By the way, Zinchenko was just a Premier League player. He was all right. He played for Arsenal. It was pretty good. He wasn't some like super elite player. David Beckham was a worldwide superstar, almost like the proto-Ronaldo of his day, where like everyone knew this guy. Obviously became famous outside of esports. If people don't know, I can tell you, he never owned that org in the way you would think he owned the org. What happened was this. They approached him for a media partnership, and as part of the sponsorship where they were going to pay him, it was basically like something like, we'll pay you, but part of it is like, you'll agree to give some of it back in exchange for some like stock, so that then we can also say you're an owner. And by the way, this isn't even something shady in esports. You guys will probably both know this example when I say it. This is actually what was done, like, what was it now, like 10 plus years ago with the fucking New Jersey Nets, as they were called at the time, where Jay-Z, it used to be all over the news constantly, Jay-Z owns the Nets, he's going to move them to Brooklyn, bro. And then as we all found out later, he owned like the tiniest amount of stock ever. It was that Russian dude who just owned the whole thing. But you can see why, rather than I'm a Russian guy who owns the team, you want it to be like, hey, it's fucking Jay-Z. Think about Brooklyn, hip hop. So this is another example, I'd also say, where in esports, just like the old saying goes, if something's too good to be true, it probably is. What are the odds that your favourite footballer or media star or someone owns a fucking esports team and has invested all his own money and he's definitely going to pay you because he's a millionaire from the Premier League? And it's not very likely, boys. It's way more likely he's just associated his name with it while paying none of the costs, and that the second things go bad, he's going to get the fuck out of town. That's just actually a totally logical way to say it. The reason I'm bringing this up is, even though there are definitely other orgs, Bleed's a good example, where there was nothing like this. They were just shady orgs that didn't pay. I'll just say this. If you are a pro player, wise the fuck up. Don't join an org like that. That should be screaming to you like red flag, danger Will Robinson. This looks way too good to be true. What do you mean some tiny Ukrainian org's owned by a millionaire player from the fucking Premier League? That's an absurd premise, bro. And the reason I say this is because, mate, one of the worst things about esports pros, I get that they're young and inexperienced, is so many of them are just plebs on this topic. Like, I've heard stories, bro, where they'll swap orgs because the org offered each of them $1,000 extra a month. And it's like, Mate, if you left a real org with like 15 years of esports tenure who's not going to disappear overnight, and you join an org none of us know for 1,000, you're a fool, mate. Like that, first of all, the 1,000 might not be real. And the difference is, even if you might think, complexity's not a big, complexity's a fucking part of the furniture, bro. Jason Lake isn't going to disappear overnight and be like, where's he gone? Where's he? People like that, it's very unlikely they're going to fuck you over. Because I agree with you. There's no way it's actually not making the major and then making loads of stickers that made these people do this. The numbers are too high. But I would imagine that was the last moment where they just couldn't hide it anymore, bro. Like the old saying we have in English is they were stealing from Peter to pay Paul. I'd imagine within their org, I bet it wasn't even each people had the same amount. I bet it was like, one person got his February month here, then suddenly someone else got January right after. And then they try and keep the plate spinning, don't they? They try and keep it going as long as possible. And they will know, even if you got that sticker money, that probably only gets you to the next major as well. You know what I mean? It's always the problem with these sorts of scammers is, in a way, I can tell you why they do it and why it'll always exist. Because until you get caught, you can get away with it. You can sometimes get away with it as these cases for years. So in that case, you actually don't have to have. This is where actually people like Jason Lake look silly. He actually has to try and have the funding and really actually have the margins make sense in the Excel sheet. And if he doesn't, he goes, sorry guys, I'm going to have to close the org. The other dickhead doesn't. He just goes, slide to them and say it's coming in 2 months, or claim there's some sort of a wire transfer problem, or when the next sponsor pay, they just do all the classic esports lies. And unfortunately, I can tell you that will always exist in esports because it sort of works for a while. It doesn't long term. Obviously, you'll never be like fucking G2 if you do that, but it could work a couple of years. And I'll tell you what, if you got really, really, really lucky, every now and then I'll bet even one does make it through the threshold and become a real org off it. And they just never got to the point where they were totally, no liquidity and couldn't pay anyone, or they had the right set of players that were willing to stay 3 months extra. So sadly, I have to say, since we can't really know from the outside who the scammers are, I hope people just wise up a little bit and they just like sort of ask yourself, does that seem dodgy? Does it seem like too good to be true? Maybe, by the way, a random aspect for the Passion UA one. Maybe even just actually, if you ever get a chance to talk to the guy, just ask him, like, did you really start this? Is this your, like, maybe the guy will even give you some clue. Oh, I'm mainly more of a media partner. So I'd like to know that info.
The Passion UA one's really curious because I'm not sure if you went and read Louis' report or not, but there's a lot of conflicting information coming from the organization. So yes, when Zinchenko left, they called him a media partner. But when it came to roster signings, especially in the first year or so, he was directly involved in calling players. Even with the Senzu transfer, I think there was something about him calling and making that happen. And he's also kind of contradicting himself because there's, a Discord call that Louis reported about in this report where he basically says, I haven't made decisions. I can be hot-tempered, why do we pay you salaries to be in the top 50? But then he goes and says that I didn't invest anything and I was just a media partner. So there's a lot of conflicting information directly from Zinchenko. And the way Louis even put it in the report is he kind of just put those two things in isolation and let people kind of do their own cross-referencing to see that that's not actually consistent. And you can kind of see from the way it's portrayed, both from the organization and from Zinchenko, that it doesn't really line up. And also, the CEO of Passion UA, Zinchenko already had ties to. It's one of his friends, and they had previous holdings together in different companies. So there is something strange there, in at least the consistency from what they're saying. So as far as your point as to, how involved was he, or did the players really investigate? It seemed like he was more than a media partner, and there was very clearly some more involvement. So there's a lot more that went wrong in this situation than just that.
It's why I say the timing of when that messaging changed is very interesting. It looks like at the end they were almost... That's why, by the way, what you're saying makes even more sense. If the actual real CEO guy is a friend of his, this is almost like going, look, like, I'll just say you're a media partner. You can sort of quietly leave through the back door and then we'll deal with the rest of it. It almost looks... Because, by the way, that's the other thing that's the worst one about this one. The 3D Max one, it looks like there's been a lot of radio silence on that one. It's mainly just people didn't get paid. The Passion UA one is mad because of how much has been said about it. Like, in that particular case, the Passion UA one screams to me like, this is people trying to be like, I want to seem like I had as little to do with this as possible because there could actually be like legal ramifications for this or something. So I don't want to be the one who's actually in like a fucking court case, or as you say, I'm the one held accountable for the money itself. Because you are right, that phrasing is crazy if you never invested any money. What do you mean you're paying their salaries? Like, that's what the guy who actually is the fucking order says, mate. Again, you would never have, by the way, spoiler, David Beckham would never have been on a call for Guild Esports going, what am I paying you guys salaries for? You didn't even get to the fucking top 8 of the major. I would be shocked if David Beckham Beckham even knew like 10 of the players in the org, you know what I mean? I think he just attached his name and went, my kid's like esports, cool, I'll have part of the org. And then he just, probably 3 years later, was like, oh shit, is that thing still running? Oh, fuck, how was it going? You know, like, spoiler, in no universe was was David Beckham in the meeting when he hired me for consulting. Like, Thorin, I really want your take on what team I should sign. Also, as a quick joke, because this actually shows I'm consistent and I put my money where my mouth is. I've always told the story when they actually asked me to do that consulting. It was only for 1 month. They just basically asked me to write them a report of like, what could we do with our CS division? Because they wanted to sign like a team. And basically, I gave them like 3 options. I told them basically at the time, I think it was in like 2021 or something, maybe 2020, maybe. I basically told them the 3 options are, because they said something like, we're willing to spend like, I think it was like 2.5 million pounds or something, or dollars. I told them for that money, there's 3 options. You either double it, and I can tell you right now, you can just sign a top 5 team in the world, and they'll definitely be really good, but you're going to have to double it if you want that, because you're also going to need to buy the league spots as well, you know, and all the players. But I actually knew all the salaries back then. The second option is you basically gamble. And at the time it was, you get a roster, these are the ones that were around back then, like when MSL had that mixed team, for example, you get one of them for way cheaper than that, but it's a pure gamble. They might make it into tournaments and become a real team, as they did. They might never. They might just get stuck in those online quarters. The third option, and here's what's cool, they took the third option, is just don't do it. Just don't get a team right now. Wait a few years and either come back with the 5 million or just do the gamble or just don't come in at all. And actually, I always thought I did one of the few things I think consultants should do, which is I wasn't being paid to tell them to buy a team. I was being paid to tell them what the market was. And what I told them was, if you actually spend the 2.5, that's the worst of the 3 options. Because what you'll get is 2 million of that will be the league spots, by the way. Then you have 500k. You'll have a shit team anyway. And now you might just have, remember back then what those partner leagues were like, you might just have the team that goes 0-4 every time and never does anything. And you wasted $3 million, $2 million on that. So the point here is like, unfortunately, there are very few people like me in this industry doing that. Everyone else is just jazzing it up and saying they've got all the money and trying to swing for the fences on everything. And unfortunately, I'm pretty sure this isn't, as was clearly the point of the topic, this isn't just these 2 teams. Especially with the sticker pressure, there's going to be more of this, right? There's going to be more orgs come out, presumably.
Yeah, as I said at the start, there's definitely one other organization I know of in the top 50 that owes hundreds of thousands. So it's definitely an issue that is getting bigger as we go.
I like it though. That's a banger topic. It's a pretty good one. We don't normally have that sort of angle. So, Maui, what is bad for you right now in CS?
Mine is NAVI. This team was supposed to have used the player break well. They were supposed to bounce back after not making it to the playoffs of Cologne. And they skipped the bounty to lose to Legacy. And yeah, Legacy, by the time we record this, they beat Falcons as well. And you can really say some great stuff about that. But even the way that they lost to Legacy was just despicable. Some of the ways that they lost those rounds, I'll say one guy that, even though I was propping him up like crazy, who definitely didn't live up to the billing in their series versus Legacy, was Mikaze. He was griefing them on multiple rounds on Inferno. I think there were I went through the whole demo, and there were 3 specific rounds where he individually lost them the round. He was jump spotting a car one time, they snuck up on him, they killed him. One time he was in the A bomb site, and he clearly didn't communicate with Wonderful, and also didn't even know how his angles worked, so he got shot in the back from some guy that was flanking him from Moto. He just, and also just in terms of getting entries and the kills that he was so sharp with last season and earlier, even last year, that was nowhere to be found in the series. A little bit, I'd say a little bit came out on Ancient, but still not even remotely close to what I think was, well, I considered him the best Ancient player last season, and I don't think that was even a big debate, because obviously Vitality weren't playing it. Falcons weren't really sick on it either at that point. Like, they were better on it last year. But yeah, no, I thought he was the best Ancient player, and he didn't do anything close to carrying them in the way that I would have wanted. And as a whole, I think that Navi are at a crossroads, and they now need to make the decision. I think they need to make the decision a little bit earlier than they would have expected. I think they probably thought that they were going to consider running this lineup out for one more season and see what they're capable of. But if you're not getting EWC, what are you going to get that's of note this season? Because you're not winning the major with this kind of lineup. I think that the firepower is always been the talking point, the biggest talking point for them. But I also don't even necessarily think the game plans are that sick anymore. I don't feel like they're always even they're not tricking opponents as they used to be. That was what made them so special in 2024, was that they were blindsiding people. They were throwing enough misdirection in the round that they would hit the bomb site that's less stacked. I don't even think that's the case on their T sides anymore. Like, they made a little bit of a T side comeback versus Legacy on Inferno, but that wasn't that impressive in terms of like mid-rounding ability or anything like that. So I think the bad thing with Navi is I think they absolutely have to make a change before like midway in the season. I want them to do it as soon as possible, and I don't care anymore about like, can you on paper make the case that this player is better than whatever, Ema or who else would be up for debate, really? Like Ema, or maybe even Ema becomes IGL and Alexi is booted from the team or something like that. This team just needs a facelift immediately, because and I mean this with just like, there's been other names that have been floated around there. Like, some people have been saying, okay, if they're not going to get frozen, what about someone like Stare? Or I'm even down to go somewhere lower. I'm down to go even somewhere lower than that. I like go for one of the FUT players. Go for all of the FUT players. Let's be completely real. All of the FUT players wanted to be on Navi at one point in their lives. And so I'm not saying to get Symmetry, but I would be down for a Krebeni move at this point. I'd definitely be down for a Jugs move. I wouldn't even mind getting an X-Floud move in there too, even though, you know, he's not part of that new Navi Junior initial lineup. But I'm so down for just making a change, because, again, these players on paper might not be better than their counterparts on Navi in isolation, but the way that the team is not operating now for Navi is so apparent that you just need to kind of find a mentality change more than a tactical change. And I think that to me, if I had to make a change on the team, I probably would go with Ema stays and becomes in-game leader, because we already know he's a huge mid-rounder for them. And then I would kick Alexi, and I would probably bring in a firepower upgrade, whether that's like Stare or somebody from FUT.
I'm glad that this was your bad point, because I almost toyed with the idea of having Navi being eliminated from EWC as my good point, just to shoehorn this topic in somehow. But yeah, I think the fact that they didn't make a change is insane, to be honest. Like, yes, they had a good string of results towards the end of the season, but also when you contextualize that around the fact that Falcons had just made a roster change, Vitality were taking breaks, you know, like their main competitors for titles were kind of in a limbo period as well. They kind of looked at those results, and I guess some of the options they had during the offseason, according to Blade's interview, like, he did say that they were exploring the market, and they always do, but, you know, some offers just didn't go through, or some buyout offers were just too much or whatever. So, like, yes, they obviously tried, but I feel like this has been the story with Navi for like 3 seasons now. 3 or 4 seasons even, where they are constantly talking about, you know, this season will be the test for this roster. And you can go back through multiple Blade interviews from the majors or pre-majors, and he's saying, you know, like, this season will be the test for this roster. This season will, you know, tell us where we are. And each time he's talking about, you know, how they're always going to explore the market in the off season. And each time it's always seemed like they should make a change, or they're in the position to potentially make a change. So you had Frozen, obviously, who was rumored, and that didn't go through. This offseason, it really seemed like they would try and go for, you know, 1 or 2 changes. But now Blade is saying, you know, we had this chemistry, and we didn't want to risk breaking this chemistry when it seems like the team is actually doing kind of decently. But that at that point, it almost feels like they're too hesitant, you know, and we're kind of seeing that now, where they're not getting the results that they seem to think that they could. This boot camp in the offseason didn't actually pay off the way they thought it would. So to kind of circle back with my idea of having this as a good point, I think them being eliminated from EWC in this fashion is good, to give them a bit of a reality check as to where their position actually is, because I think they do need to make a change. And without these kind of eliminations, I don't think that they would actually get a full picture of where their standing is in that sense. Because, yeah, you're right. Like, in the offseason, if they signed, honestly, they could have even done a double signing of like Krebeni and Jugs or something along those lines. And I think I've talked about it before, where Coolio's talked about how he works with Krebeni, and a lot of the game planning and kind of overall structure comes from Coolio's side. And I think Krebeni moving into Blade's system would kind of fit that as well, where Benny would kind of still be able to get it to do his own thing and have Blade structure around him. So it would have been a really good fit. But now obviously we're into the season and we're going to have this long string of events, and a lot of organizations don't want to make changes during this period. So in a way, they have missed the boat unless they can suddenly get these signings done. And I think it's going to be so much more difficult now. So I think it is perfect as a bad point, because we're just going to have to now watch NAVI slip from being one of these competitors to kind of, a semifinal team, I think.
No, by the way, I actually do think you have to center this in the first split, first season. I'm using the league terminology. The first season of, because by the way, I say that because season in league means the whole year, bizarrely. So it's actually really complicated. The first
and
season
Valorant means 2 months.
Exactly. The first season of this year, actually already, remember, people wanted there to be roster moves in NAVI anyway. They want them to sort of consolidate on being that semi-finals team. They probably should have been in the final of the Budapest Major, but they made the semi-finals run. A lot of us thought, right, if you just add the one piece, you're at the top again. You could be number one. So they didn't do that. Right. This is why, actually, he said this years and years ago at this point about FaZe. This is why Kassad actually nailed the paradigm for how you build teams years ago. Because his problem was this. He said basically every time you're one piece away and you don't make that move, by the time you sort of look up, you're 2 pieces away. And by the way, if you ever get more than 2, FaZe is the best example, is because it came true. If you ever get more than 2, by the way, eventually no one joins anyway and the team just you just fucking nothing. That's what Liquid obviously did. They went from being one of the premier orgs that you could say G2 did that for a period of time when they lost the big names. So the big problem is, obviously, in the first season, if that really was the case, that it was Blade himself who chose, like, I don't want to make a move, I believe in this squad, it was right. I mean, Makazi actually got better than that. Like, it looked, again, this is why I want to center it around the idea that they clearly did want to make moves, but they didn't for whatever reason. The market, maybe they couldn't get the money for the buyouts. Maybe there was only 1 or 2. I would suspect also, by the way, maybe there's only 1 or 2 names they particularly want, and they're not an org. Blade doesn't seem like the guy who just signs anyone. He seems like the guy who wants his guy, and then he'll bring him in. If he doesn't have him, he'll wait. So the big problem I have is, it's very different if you tell me Blade believes in this roster, he just wants 1 more season, right? You know what? I'm in for that. At this point, the guy's earned it. He's bought that ticket, and by the way, he would have proved himself right. McCarthy was great. They won loads of finals. They won some trophies, and actually, they came into the major as a team that should have been a dark horse to win it all. So that was fine. The problem now is, if it's true, and let's be real, he's admitted in interviews now, if it's true that they did want to make a roster move and then they didn't, now that's a nightmare, because now I can't now believe that. That means essentially, if I read too much, Blade doesn't even believe in this roster. Even he knows it's scuffed. And actually, I think if you watch how they're playing and how they're losing, I think even worse, this isn't even just a pure like ability level thing. This almost looks like the team themselves have that thing of like, oh, bloody hell, are we stuck with this roster? Like, we should already have made whatever the changes. That should already have been done. And it also really makes me wonder about some of those rumours you saw that were like smack bang in the middle of last season. Remember the famous one was the Aurora one, where it was like Aurora will be Molodoy and Alexi B. By the way, those 2 names now seem hella spicy because those are the ones that are still linked with roster moves now. That makes it look like that might not have been totally just hot air. That was maybe like one of those ones where it wasn't going to happen, but talks were happening, or people were thinking, oh, I've heard maybe Alexi gets kicked after this season. And so you start thinking, right, could we get him into this squad because we're going to go internationals or so it's one of those ones where all these things later on, if you keep track of them, look really, really conspicuous now. Now it looks like they knew in NAVI themselves, like, it's okay, get to the end of the season, we're having a great season, by the way, we're still in a chance to win, we're second right behind Vitality, but you got to the end of the season, you didn't do well at the major, it's like, right, let's make the move, and you didn't. And by the way, I even think, this is more of a speculation, but if you even look at the way they phrased it, I actually really do wonder if the person was the aforementioned, famously, this was a rumour linked to them, Senzu. Because, mate, how did he end up in fucking little BC game? Have you having a laugh? Like, there's no way. And that was a play, it was implied. Blade or Navi wanted it in the past. They thought maybe that was a person they could work with and mould, So that's what really worries me. Because if I actually look now, I think so many of the things that made them good are just gradually withering. And look, if you watch these matches, they're still in them all. Except for the actual loss against Legacy. They're still always having close games. Even at the major, they were having close games and losses. They're still a team that is obviously competent and can play well. But they've lost all the edges that you used to love about them being Navi. Like, I'll tell you the obvious one. Remember when they first had that like almost era where they were in all the finals? That was when they were the auto win Mirage team. Bro, they don't have a single map in the pool they're an auto winner right now. In fact, if you ever go look, they're in that position I've seen FaZe get into before it got bad, where it's like, if you even look at some of the picks they do, I don't even believe they have like a same pick against every team. Like, I think they have to do that, like really be like cynical with what you do in the draft and what you do practice and what your second veto. By the way, classic move that also tells me I'm really worried for Blade. He has instantly made Cache the permaban. Bro, that's a brand new map. Like, if you're normally having problems, you focus on that. You don't phase it. You go put all your practice time into that map. That implies to me they probably did it. It didn't even fucking work in practice. Like, so I think what's worrying is they've already started the season. And on paper, I look at the other teams. Look, here's the one piece of good news if you're NAVI. Oh, there's a lot of teams in the top 10 are a mess. No one knows where Aurora is. MOUZ can be up and down from event to event. Falcons just got blasted. Vitality's like, look, across the board, Spirit didn't win Bounty. You could say, luckily, there's a lot of like mines in the minefield of the top 10. The problem is, even if you think best case scenario, doesn't this NAVI team just end up like 5th or something, or 4th?
That's kind of my concern.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How did they? Because the obvious angle to me is, even if they really played for them now, 10 out of 10 CS, I don't think they win a trophy, do they? Like, aren't there just too many teams could beat you? Because as much as I'm saying it's a mess in the top 10, we've also now got a top 10 where it feels like almost everyone could beat you if they're playing well, though. That's also really dangerous for NAVI. Like, I think they did rely on that season one. If there was a lot of like scuffed teams in the bottom half of the top 10, if they got them, they would always have beaten, the Paravisions of the world and the FUT. So they would always get these teams, or an Astralis or some of these teams they took care of. You look now, this are fucking dangerous teams. Like the Legacy being one. Like, that's a team we used to all look past. You can't anymore. They're actually probably a real top 10 team themselves now, aren't they? So I'll even say this, and this is the ultimate indictment, because I don't say this affectionately. I say it quite rudely. I'm actually worried NAVI's in a G2-esque position where you've got this roster, because the reason I say the G2-esque position is G2 on paper has a bunch of good names and we all trust their coach and we all think he must know what he's doing. Notice how similar it is. And isn't the problem in G2 when you have the discussion of who should you cut, there's like 1.5 players that anyone's willing to agree upon, but then the whole roster has problems. And it feels the same in NAVI, because what's funny is people are going to be really shocked by Maui saying, like, remove Alexi B, but it's like, but who else do you remove? Like, I'm sorry, the two names I think are 100% safe is, I'm never removing Wonderful or Bit. Like, first of all, I'm amazed Bit's still there. Like, you better keep him. By the way, if he goes, he will just be in Falcons tomorrow and you'll never get him back. That'll be like it doesn't matter if Spirit wants him, honestly, you ain't getting him, mate. Like, he's gone forever. He's in the greatest contract prison of all time because he also can win. But the other one is Wonderful. I think Wonderful's just proved himself at this point in time. You're not bringing some random opener. But if you are anyone else, almost anyone else could get it at this point in time. Let's be real. I mean, even Makaze himself, look, he had a great glow up, and that was one of Blade's sort of success stories. He's been shit the last month, mate. His arse fell off at the major. He never got up since. So I know what you mean, because actually there's so many angles you could go with this. But that's why I'll bring it all the way back. And I agree with this as a bad point. Here's why it's bad. Because like I said at the beginning, not only do I not think they're going to make a roster move, but even worse, this is why I'm really worried for Blade. I don't think he's the guy who's just like, all right, just get me someone and we'll work with them. I think he is the person. He wants that specific person, that he's got the vision. Yeah. And unfortunately, I actually think the old saying, beggars can't be choosers. I don't know that you're going to get that person, or you might have to wait till the end of the year if it's even available. Because I'm with Maui. Like, look, I actually think Stair would be a banger. He can play a bunch of different roles, but is he going to leave Astralis? Is that not going to cost millions of dollars? You know what I mean? He's in a team right now, mate. You can't really just ask him to hop on over. It's not 1.6. Like, you have to buy him out and all that. And by the way, he has to want to join. Like, there's a million elements of that are kind of a bit dodgy. So no, I'm with you. I actually think it's a good bad point. It's not even ugly. It's just bad, isn't it? Like, what's the future of this team?
A couple of additions to that is that the other part is that it's not like they're perma-banning Cache either. Like, they did float it as a decider in this Legacy game, and I know Blade said that he was practicing it, but it almost feels like NAVI are in that position where they should be, if they're confident in it, they should be picking it. Just like you're seeing FaZe kind of make it one of their main things. It almost feels like NAVI is in that position where they need to be a team that's taking that map and running with it and using it as a pain point for other teams while they have the opportunity to, but they're clearly not doing that at the moment. The other thing was that you were kind of talking about it, but the way Blade talked about these roster moves specifically, in previous seasons when he's done interviews, he's said, we tried some negotiations, whatever, like we always explore the market. This one specifically, he said, we tried some negotiations, but it didn't go well. We were close to making changes, but eventually we understood it couldn't happen. And then when he was asked to go more in depth about that, he said that sometimes we were deep in discussion, and then day by day people analyze everything. We make an offer, they make an offer, and then some other team can come and make them an offer. There's competition for these players, and we couldn't do anything, which is like such a big indictment as to what the current roster's potential is. Because Blade, if he's candidly talking about how ready he was to make a change, which I don't think he's done it to quite this degree in previous interviews, that is a real worry for the potential of where they think this roster can go now. Because he did try and claw it back after that, where they're like, we have all this chemistry, so we thought it would be okay to stick with this. But at that point, you've kind of already showed your hand about, where you thought that this roster's potential.
No, put it this way. I think normally, as you say, in past seasons where they could or they couldn't, it's up to him, seemingly. It sounded more like he just gave almost the PR answer, like, well, we always check the market and see what's available. And, it's just doing our due diligence. You're right. That implies, actually, like, he would have said yes. It was up to him and he could just press a button. There'd be a different player in this team. Also, by the way, that's where he has to be super careful, because he can't tell us which player and who's recruited. He has to that mystery has to remain, isn't it? And then they're even doing that thing. I saw there was an Lexi B interview that was similar, where it's like, well, you have to know the reality that, bro, the way it's what's funny is when you use PR answers, it's no longer the answer that gives the clue away, it's which PR answer you choose. That's the key thing. If you're a journalist, you know what that means. You know what I mean? You can read between that. If you're a fan, you just think, yeah, he's right though, isn't he? When things get bad. No, that almost implies, by the way, Alexi B himself's on the chopping block and he knows it. Like, that's what I would interpret that as. That's not like, yeah, they were going to make a move. Like, that's him just sort of being like, yeah, almost saying, if we play bad, we will get fired. Like, you don't say that if everything's great in the team and you're about to win the next tournament. You say that if actually, yeah, you're almost getting ready for the next month where you are in the team. Although in this case, I actually think it's worse. I think they'll have to just play the whole season with this roster. So I don't even know. Even Blade can't make this one work. Right, whatever. Anyway, speaking of people keeping a record of what's going on and what you've done on the internet, what about if you were to go online and you're talking about something, you visited a site and suddenly you go onto other websites and every ad's just that, every targeted ad is just that thing you looked up. It's that place you were going to go on holiday. It's that product you were talking about buying with your girlfriend on WhatsApp. Everything, suddenly everything just like that. Well, that's because the internet is actually not as safe and as sort of cordoned off as you might imagine. In the modern day, there's always a tracking. Well, did you know that with Proton VPN, that's one thing they can help you with, because it is actually designed for people who want to keep their digital privacy and security as a top priority. It helps keep what you do online private and lets you access the internet without having to worry about things like that because it's secure. And so unlike most VPNs, it is backed by strong European privacy laws and years of expertise creating safer, faster, more open internet for everyone. They have a strict no logs policy that is independently verified. It is open source, so anyone can actually inspect how it works, and it is backed by a foundation that is focused on protecting user rights, not selling data behind the scenes. It all works seamlessly, so you can be confident you're getting extensive server network, high-speed connections, integrated ad blockers, and compatibility services without restrictions in over 145 countries. So whether you want to watch content online in different regions, get around blocked sites, or just keep your activity private on public Wi-Fi or at home, Proton VPN has you covered. So it's easy to get started. Right now, Proton VPN is offering our listeners 70% off a 2-year plan when you go to protonvpn.com/snake. That's protonvpn.com/snake for 70% off your 2-year plan. That's protonvpn.com/snake. Right. Thank you to Proton VPN, obviously. Now we will go on, and I have my bad point. And mine is actually going to be a rerun of one that I had a while ago, because I want to just do it again, but with a different guest this time. And this is the bad point. It's not Falcons. Falcons is a pretty good fucking team, mate. I mean, even at this tournament, they were good. This is what the bad take is. Now we all remember this one. No one, including me, can actually get a motherfucking bead on how good or bad is Falcons. I don't think they even know, bro. I don't think karrigan loads into the server and has any clue if he's about to dust someone off 2-0 with Kiyosuke posting a 1.9 rating, or if he's about to go in himself and drop 2 frags and lose them up 13-2. I don't think everyone before they won the major said they wouldn't win the major. After they won the major, everyone said they'd have a season and win every tournament. And I don't think anyone, including them, has any fucking clue how we're supposed to evaluate Falcons. I actually think, for real, even though, look, I don't think they'll generally lose to bad teams. I actually think this is actually a sign, if anything, it's not just NAVI, is it? Legacy's actually pretty good. I actually don't take that such a diss. But I do get the vibe that anyone who watched the major and just thought, it's just going to be that every tournament. Like, I don't know about that, brother. Like, I even look back on that major. The more I've gone back and watched the VODs, like, that could have ended almost every match except the final. It's only the final, I think, tricks us all that they were super dominant. Mate, they were scraping by and they were pulling shit out of their arse and they were having to have, superstar players have a bad match. So I myself will say, I don't even fucking know, mate. Part of me wants to be cocky and be, karrigan's got fucking Nick Hiyasuke rocking. He's got Modessy's the best player. But even if you noticed, I haven't been super brave about being, they're going to shit all over Vitality. I'm scared. That's why, actually, I'll just be honest. The real reason I just sided with Vitality is it just feels safe, doesn't it? Like, it's comfortable. I know who they are. I know what their players are like. I know all the roles work. It just feels like the easy one to go. I'll just stick with that. I'll just invest my money in the S&P 500. You know what? I'm not going for the big ones. I'll just take the quarterly returns. That's all I need. So I want to know from you guys, how the fuck do you evaluate it? And what do you think about this topic? Because I feel like actually the whole scene, we have no clue what to be. They're just the biggest mystery question mark team ever.
It's kind of hard because I think a lot of people thought that Falcons having this time off after the major and having proper time to practice with karrigan and getting all of these reps that they said that they desperately needed would finally allow him to implement the system that he really only had, like 60 days before they won the major to put in. And so you come into this break where they've won the major, they've taken all this pressure off of NiKo, and you have karrigan who's able to start implementing his full idea and get everyone on board and have, no tape to watch on them. And I think that really set people up for this idea that Falcons were suddenly going to consistently be that force. But when karrigan is in a team, I feel like people also forget just the way that FaZe used to win. And even when it's a consistent system and you have karrigan in there, the way that he's calling and the way he's playing rounds around a team with his structure, it's not always consistent. That's the thing. Like, yes, sometimes they will have really dominant periods. Sometimes they'll go on runs. They'll beat teams. And that's not to say that karrigan himself is inconsistent with his calling, but it's the fact that the way they play, their style, can sometimes just lead to these kind of results where they aren't able to always find that form. And I think that is a really interesting part about the way people can't really assess where Falcons are at, because you had this whole run up to the major where they made a couple of second places. They had Astana, they went to CAC, and even when I was looking at it back then, I was like, okay, yeah, they haven't had a lot of time to practice. They've talked about, not being able to put the system in and trying to get m0NESY to call more and get this whole project going. And at the same time, you had Kyosuke starting to really turn his level up. And I think everyone kind of looked at this graph, that's kind of like going like this, and they just thought it would keep going on that trajectory. And when you come out of this break and you're having them struggle, to be fair, the online result I can discount. I think the first season Blast Bounty result is always a bit of a Mickey Mouse result for teams, and I don't think that there's a lot of stock that you can put into it. But when you come into EWC and you have them kind of going out like this, I think it really does add to that whole idea of where do you even assess where their level is at. The other thing I think that is very consistent is karrigan only showing up for the first 5 to 7 rounds of a game, because this is happening before the break, and I thought, maybe afterward this might go away. Maybe afterward it might go away. But here I am watching, Falcons' matches at EWC, and you have karrigan starting a map, like 5-1, 6-1, and then for the next 15 rounds he goes like 2-11. And you can go back through the matches because this happens regularly throughout series. So I think when you have him cooling off like this and only really showing up for the first few rounds of the map, it makes it really hard for them to consistently get the results that they should. So there's, I think, a lot of issues for Falcons to solve right now to find that consistency. It's a good bad point, because when you have a team that really realistically should be a title contender next to Vitality, next to Spirit, you want to make them always be a contender, but there's no way to really consistently assess where Falcons are at yet, even though we've had a break and we thought this would actually be a good time for the scene to stabilize around that. I don't want to have to pick Vitality every time as my favorites for an event, but here we are.
Also, by the way, how banter is it that we all looked at that bracket like, can't wait for Falcons Vitality in that semi. Neither of them turned up. They're both out. It's fucking Spirit Legacy. It's like, what? Anyway, what do you think, Maui?
I like that Note touched on the fact that this is just what you get from karrigan teams. Just so many successful teams, but my opinion, no era ever. I mean, they had a really great run with FaZe in 22, but and they won a lot of big tournaments, but they were just so streaky all the time. And the way that they won was always such a nail biter. It's why karrigan is still. I don't know. I'm gonna hold my defense on Glaive forever. You know, I think the hallmark of the greatest IGL ever is that he wins in boring ways. That he is so dominant and so consistent, and the floor is so high that it almost makes it leaves little up to the imagination. Whereas karrigan, there's always a puncher's chance with every roster, even the opponents if they're the underdogs.
No, true.
Like, it's just, you know, entertaining doesn't equate to successful or greatness for me. Other than for the spectator, I suppose. But the way, I mean, just, I think that karrigan's always been sort of had the, you know, the double-edged sword of having a lot of star players around him all the time that he gives a lot of individual liberties to. And that happened today versus Legacy. It's not that I thought that a lot of the T-side calling on Mirage was really bad or anything. But I noticed that it seems like he kind of like gets into plays very quickly with this group, as opposed to sometimes letting the round sort of settle. And I feel like I just think it'd be I would love to know how this team would play out, or if karrigan wanted to try a couple more rounds that instead of just a B split, like I think first gun round versus Legacy was just a full on B split attempt, and then they tried running through a molly and Nissim just mows him down, and I'm just kind of like, man, again on a gun round, like I'm just kind of like kind of wondering why, but I guess that's sort of how he bootstrapped Falcons to begin with. That he just kind of gave these sort of guidelines and these kind of like guardrails for how they want these strats to run, and there's little decision making, because what I feel like he probably assessed prior to joining was that if you give him too much freedom, on the other hand, then somebody's gonna go for a play, somebody's gonna try to
you get all the screenshots.
Yeah, and if too many people are taking their own liberties on the round, then you lead to really messy losses. But instead, now I almost see a Legacy team that looks really prepared, but at the same time, you just can't count Legacy out for being a tier 1 team that understands, oh, the smokes you're throwing and the flashes you're throwing indicate you're doing a B split. We're gonna just spam the smoke there. We're gonna throw a couple counter nades here. We know what we need to do to react to that, and that's what they did really well. So that's again, you gave props to Legacy already, and I will too, because I also thought they played really well versus NAVI. I think some of the counter utility they had versus NAVI was very nice. I think this team is on a bit of I think Art's on a huge redemption arc right now, actually. Sure. But beyond that, I think Falcons and karrigan probably needs to maybe step back a little bit and play and slow rounds down and throw in a couple more slower layered map control defaults that are a little more grindy and a little more Navi 2024-esque.
By the way, I know what you mean also. By the way, I know this as a karrigan fan. I know that, like, the whole reason he hooks you is he compels you. I don't understand it, but it compels me, as the quote goes. Like, that's the beauty of karrigan. You're right. It's the idea you can win or lose the game. And like, I'll give you a quick analogy from Quake, actually. At the end of Quake Live in like the early 2010s, the really legendary player, so you'll see how I'm going with this, Kula was still around, the Russian player, right? Who once upon a time was the #1 player in Quake. He was like the dominant champion, you know, when he was like 16 or something, but he was still around as like a 30-year-old guy or whatever. And what was amazing was he was still like a top 4 player who'd been in all like semis and finals. But if you ever saw his style, you'll see where the analogy's going. He would always have these insanely close games where he'd pull out some like unbelievable like clutch last kill to like win or lose the game, right? And it would always be that he either wins the game on this and you're like, oh my God, or he loses it completely and you're like, oh, so close. And I know what you mean, because like the joke is every time he got that kill, I would be like that famed black gentleman going, that's why he's the GOAT. You remember that fucking gif we all love? Yeah, but in some ways, that's why, that's part of the magic of karrigan, isn't it? Because when he does that, you go, no one else could do that. But you're right, Maui. The obvious question is, why do you have to be in that position every fucking game? Like, where's the game where you just win 13-6 and we all go home? You know what I mean? Like, I know what you mean. That's a very fair point, because people are forgetting. If you want to ever do these comparisons between Vitality and fucking Astralis or Glaive and Vitality, Astralis used to win. They were the ultimate team where everyone was like, it's boring. Because even how they won was boring. Like, either the team would be like, even we knew we'd get our ass kicked in exactly that way with no room to do anything. So, no, it's a very fair point.
Like MR15 single-digit rounds for the other team every single time, too. But also, why are Falcons permabanning Cache? That's another question I have from this.
I know, mate.
Of the players that they have on that
you would
team,
think they should be amazing, shouldn't they? I know.
It is crazy.
I'll tell you a speculation I have. That also makes me think they actually did absolutely fuck all in the player break, mate. I imagine they really did do the like, look, NiKo, enjoy it, mate. You've got the Lifetime Achievement Award major. Like, just have 3 weeks off or something. Because I know what you mean. If I look at their roster, they should be shit hot on Cache. They should wreck everyone. And
it's like you have NiKo, historically one of the greatest players on Cache. He had so many highlights. Yep. You have Kiske, who's an aimer, which Cache just lends itself to. mauisnake can honestly kind of do whatever. Operas are not like the biggest impact on Cache sometimes, but mauisnake would have the freedom to do whatever. And then Teslas can just anchor. Like their roles fit so well, but it's just so crazy that they're, because they obviously permaban Overpass before, so just swapping to that and just keeping it as your permaban because it's a new map is just crazy to me. Like there's so much more you could be doing with that.
And also, by the way, there's another sign that you have to be scared if they're going to be dominant. Because actually, if people forget this about Astralis, right before the Astralis era, Astralis' permaban got removed, so the map got. That should be the same for you, you idiots. You should be even stronger now. You took out the map. You've took out the map. NiKo has whined like a motherfucker for like half a decade about like, why Overpass? Like that's out now. What are you going to say, Maui?
Oh yeah, no, just adding on. NiKo's the highest rated Cache player ever, by the way. So it just doesn't make any sense that they don't play it. It's a good little end point.
And also, if people don't remember, you know the really, really famous clip he did online? I think I can't remember the team it was against. It was the one where he did that like Deagle clip near like the fucking barrels at the shot or whatever. It's even one of the ones where I'll never forget it because this is so sad. I think it was Machine who casted it. It's one of those ones where there's a simple clip that is on Mirage too, where they fuck up while casting, and at the end of the call, they go and Deagle gets the kill or something. And it's like, bloody hell, that hurts me because this is going to be seen in frag movies forever, and at the end your brain just did the brain fart and transposed the words and you were like, and
4 and 5 and 6. Oh wait,
I know. You know those ones where it's like, so because again, if it was the throwaway round, who cares? But that's going to go down like in history.
My favorite is watching that clip, that Ziwu clip, get edited in frag movies because they always like edit the way that it's counted.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's a good one, isn't it? Oh yeah, but anyway, let's move on. So, are you someone who wants to have your own say on this show? Well, if you are, then you can subscribe to LFM Premium. It's $9 a month. But if you sign for the whole year, it's $90, so it's actually $7.50 a month. 7-day money-back guarantee. You will get all the shows on the network ad-free via the podcast platforms, and you get things like exclusive Q&As. We're going to do one after this section at the end of the show, rather, behind the paywall from your questions. But also, we're going to do each show, if you submit one, a topic. So if you want a topic or questions and answers, subscribe, go to the Discord, you'll have access, and there's actually a whole set of threads. One is questions, one is topics, one's hot takes also if you want to do the hot take show. But for this particular case, it's Snake and Banter. By the way, when you subscribe, pick your favourite show. If you pick Snake and Banter, then Maui will get some of the money. I'll do like half the shows on the network, so I get my money either way. But whatever, Maui wants money too. That's a valid thing that you have in this material world. So this is the question for this week. It is submitted by Quazcar. And he just says, I thought it's a pretty good one. It's just a really wide open one. He just says, if you could make any gameplay related change to CS, what would it be? So no, if you could change anything about the game of CS itself, what gameplay mechanic or something you'd like to tweak about? Is there something that comes to mind?
Well, that's a hard one to think of. I mean, I would honestly revert the CT Molly change, if anything. That the way the CT Molly is now is just absolutely ridiculous. You can run through it and barely take damage. It burns so little of the areas. Like it seems like they looked at Inferno Banana and just adjusted the molly exclusively based on looking at that map and didn't look at anything else. Because the number of places that a CT molly pops and you can just run around the edge of it and not have to care about it now is crazy. Like I think you can molly short on Mirage and you can just run around it and not take any damage. So the way it's created opportunities for T's to just run over sites and not really buy CT's time to play for rotates or anything like that is crazy. That Valve hasn't taken a look back at that and thought, maybe we should tweak this a little bit, or maybe we should nerf only half of what we did. So that's the one that immediately comes to mind. I mean, I'll try and think of another that isn't like a reversion. While if Alex has one to go.
Okay.
Well, I just tweeted about one yesterday. I mean, I've been playing a bit more this week. Well, I've been playing the last couple of weeks a little bit. Even when I'm winning because of it, I think the 5-7 is pretty busted.
Oh,
I think the 5.
Okay.
Yeah, I've mean, when my boomer friend and I are holding on a full fucking exec, and we have just 5-7 spamming into a choke point, and we're just getting 4 headshots because we just fucking shit or luck our way into those shots. I'm just like, yeah, we earned that. We totally earned that. It's like, no, we didn't. We didn't earn that. Like, that doesn't feel right. Like, we had like this highlight round, my friend and I, the other day. We kill like all 5 of them running to our bomb site, and they're on gun rounds. We have 5-7s, and I was like, I honestly, in the moment, was like, yes, we fucking did it, but the guns did that. The guns did that as much as we did that, and it just doesn't feel right that like I would just.
You don't even feel good about it half the time.
Yeah. I feel like it's cool. Like my instant dopamine is going up, but my logical brain is like, that's just like rolling slots or whatever, spinning a slot wheel. I would just change it to be, I'm okay with it actually one-shot headshotting, but like a quarter of the distance that it is now. It's a little too long range against helmets right now for it to just one-shot headshot. I would just make it like, if my barrel is in their ear, yes, one-shot kill, that's fine. I'll live with it, but I just don't think it needs to have any significant amount of range on a one-shot headshot kill.
I believe, actually, I'm going back in time like 10 years ago. I believe that they did something similar back in the day when the P250 was OP. They just made the range less, so you could still get the kill up close, but you couldn't like super long range tap the guy's head or whatever. What were you going to say, Nohte?
I was going to say, you could also nerf the fire rate very, very slightly, because that's the other thing, is that you can just spam the shit out of that, and it has like 20, 25 bullets in it. So I think if you nerf the fire rate very slightly, it would also help that.
Right, here's the problem, Maui. This in theory is an esports source. So I totally agree. I actually think in pro play it's absurdly overpowered. I actually think too many teams have good deagle players and haven't realised. Mate, if you have 3 people with that on a site, on a save, you have some outrageous ability when they rush through like a smoke to just like clean up the round and get a complete turnaround. But the reason why I'm sad is because I have to play the game a bit on stream now, and Maui, that is the secret boomer tech we can't get rid of, bro. Because there's 2 reasons why. One, if you nerf the 5.7 and the MP9, karrigan has to retire tomorrow, bro. He is leading the charge for the boomers. That is the secret boomer tech, because that's Maui's point out. If you don't know, by the way, when I don't have an op, all I buy is a 5.7 and a smoke. And for that exact reason, I smoke the choke and I hope they run through, bro. Because I'm not aiming. I'm just pressing mouse 1 really fast and doing this with the crosshair. Like, and the amount of times, by the way, you get to go like, get like a 3K or something. It's like, I didn't aim any of that. And also, by the way, another nerf probably should be, why am I even saying this? I hope they're not listening. It shouldn't have 20 bullets, should it, mate? That's outrageous.
20 bullets is crazy. 20 bullets is nuts.
But how powerful it is, that is nuts. So you can actually just get like 2 or 3 headshot kills that are nonsense, mate. Like that should probably be like 10 bullets or something, shouldn't it? So if you spam it, it's all used up or whatever. I'm with you. I think it's outrageous. I actually say, like I actually just think pro players haven't abused it. I think there's too many good deagle players who are idiots who are like, look at this, I'm aiming. So why are you aiming, bro? Like, I'm pretty sure you would get all the kills too, honestly. Just spam it, mate. You'll get the 3K as well, mate. You're a lot better than us. All right, mine is just a classic complaint, but I actually think people don't realise this got twice as bad. So people will know, I will go to my grave, that I hate all the nerfs to the AWP over the years. But I really hate the more modern one where it's only got the 5 bullets, because the 5 bullets was already bad. I'll tell you an obvious reason we should all acknowledge it's bad for pro player. Because let's imagine I whiff 1 bullet and they're all rushing me and we're all watching like Simple or Ziwu or Monacy do an amazing clip. Well, you get your balls cut off at the end. There's a failed orgasm. You don't get the 5K, do you? There isn't an extra bullet to shoot them with. If he misses once, that clip is over. We've all seen the fragment. He's peeking out again on Dustin. No, he isn't. He's out of bullets. And then people forget this. And this is how I know there's only ever 1 AWP on each side and everyone hates the AWPer. It's like fucking jungler in League of Legends. Because you know what made it twice as bad? Was that fucking reload update. So now when you have 3 bullets in the gun, it's like, bloody hell, right? So do I psychically know they won't rush me now because then I can't possibly kill them all, but like mathematically? Or do I like reload now just in case they do, but then I'm also down on bullets in case there's a retake? Fuck it. The calculus that's had to add to a gun, which by the way, in CS2 was already struggling anyway, and doesn't look good in the ratings as it is. Like, you don't leave poor AWPers fucking alone, mate. It was only the really good ones owning you and the cheaters. All of us normal AWPers, we were already fucking whiffing 5 bullets anyway when you rush the site. Like, give us a break, mate. I think that one got twice as bad, like I said, with the reload. The reload particularly fucked the AWPer on that.
It doesn't help that the reload takes like 5 seconds.
It's really outrageous too, isn't it? Yeah.
To even turn around.
Exactly. Okay. Right, we can move on then. So we will now go to the good section after all that bitch. And so what is actually good right now, Nohte?
So we didn't see as much of it at EWC, but I think I'm happy to see that teams aren't straying away from actually playing Cache. I mean, obviously we just talked about Falcons vetoing it and Navi kind of also banning it often, but I think in terms of when maps usually come into the pool, you'd see a lot of teams just swap their permaban to it. And I think teams were already banning overpass, so it would have been easy to just continue swapping their permaban to Cache. But I think partially because it was already a pretty well-liked map, also because there's not a ton of changes to it in terms of the overall layout. I think you're having a lot of teams who are familiar with it already and like the map, willing to adopt it, even though it's a fresh addition. So I think it's nice to be at a point where we're not seeing the new map come in. Every team just isn't playing it. You're only seeing it here and there as like a joker pick for, you know, the top 35 team who wants to get an advantage in a veto or whatever. And we're actually seeing tier 1 teams wanting to play it and the overall meta developing early on it. And it also doesn't feel boring to watch, which I was a bit concerned about because I know that Cache back before it was removed did get stale a little bit. Like a lot of people were like, this is such a T-sided map now, it's not even fun to watch. But I think there's a lot more that's like not a lot changed, but a lot of the actual way the teams are playing it feels more fun to watch. So I'm happy that we're seeing more and more of those teams kind of picking this up over time. And I think it's going to keep going as we go through the season. It also makes it fun to kind of predict vetoes now, because for a while it was quite stale, but now you're kind of seeing teams more willing to float a map that you know isn't just going to be permaban for the rest of the season. Like Navi, for example, floated in this Legacy game. So the fact that we can kind of see teams playing with the veto a little bit, like I'm sure Falcons won't permaban Cache for the rest of the season. So when do they bring that in, you know? So it makes a lot of fun it makes it fun to look at the planning for the rest of the season and see which teams are going to bring that in.
I was looking at the data for. I'll just spin it like this. I mean, one, I am glad that teams are playing Cache, and I'll spin it a couple ways. One angle is that actually, if you look at the leadify data for Cache, it's about, so in like one of Train seasons, it was played like 4% of time in Prem games. Cache is already being played 8.5% of games. And if you actually go to some of the if it actually scales with higher elo. So actually the lowest elo people are not playing Cache almost at all, which I assume is just because they're noobs and they don't know anything, you know? And then, but then if you go to the 20 to 25K elo, it's actually got its highest percentage of play, and it's getting played more than Nuke in Prem actually at this point. For that range. But then if you go above 25K, which I think is just completely infested with cheaters, if I'm being honest, then Dust 2 is just by far the most played map, which is just like, that's just how, that's the HVH lobby. The HVH lobby, like above 25K elo is just Dust 2 all the time. I mean, I was in one like 2 days ago. A guy was just fucking rage hacking. It was just crazy. But which is a problem on its own. But beyond that, the other thing I was going to say is now would be a great time if Valve wants to look at the pool and say, okay, we have now some really basic maps that the public likes. We have Mirage, we have Dust 2, we have Cache. Let's remove Dust or Mirage for the first time ever, or Inferno, in the next season. Let's remove them for the next season. We can finally take away one of these boomer maps for just one season to try something else out. Because I think Cache is playing out decently. I'm not like super fond of it. I don't think it's not my favorite to watch of any top team right now by any means or any stretch of the imagination, but now is a good time as any to maybe make a big switch in the map pool, add a tactical map.
Okay. By the way, I will say as well, I was looking this up while you were talking. Just the EWC, actually, the good news is very few teams are actually banning it, bro. Like, look, it didn't get picked a lot, but it was nearly always second ban. By the way, that's a really healthy sign, because what that implies is, one, it wasn't just, we ban overpass, swap to that. If anything, that actually implies, by the way, we don't hate it. Like, we'll switch to something else. Maybe we don't like Dust 2 or something, or we just get our ass handed. So what that implies to me is people will start playing it more and more in the season. And as Nohte says, I actually think that'll be an interesting temperature check on the team. Watch when teams finally decide to debut the Cache, because that probably implies they did have issues elsewhere in their map pool. how they play it. Like, an obvious one would be Falcons. If Falcons keep having problems, mate, I know karrigan, like he did with Anubis, he'll go straight to that map. That'll become his new pet hobby. He's trying to get good on that map. Similarly with NAVI. If NAVI are really in the shit that you can't win any seasons, they'll have to start playing it, mate. They'll have to at least, like, float it a couple of times or let it come through, like he says, a decider, because otherwise, like, it's just going to be too dodgy. So, no, I'm with you. Also, I actually do think, even though I know it's actually basically like a CSGO map, it does have like a classic feel to me. Even when it came back and I played it myself, I remember just thinking like, this isn't like pretty weird. When they reworked like Train, it's a pretty different map actually from the old one. This still has the feel of the CSGO one. And also, I did actually play that one they did in the show match, that green one in between. And that green idea was a really bad idea. Like, actually, Cache, it should look like a fucked up N64 GoldenEye map. It's supposed to be just all like greys and shit like that, isn't it? It's about just fucking NiKo shooting people with deagles, like we said earlier. So, okay, I actually think it's pretty good. It maintains all the elements that you enjoyed about Cache before. Also, as pointed out, it clearly hasn't just cynically become the overpass replacement. Like, actually, you can really see that people did just hate overpass for whatever reason. And then also, yeah, I just think, like, the obvious team right now, if people didn't see Bounty, is it just makes FaZe like 1.5 times more interesting, because they're clearly the team that actually put in the time, and they were playing during this player break anyway. So you've seen already, like, they got spirit on that map. They didn't do very well against Vitality, but it's Vitality. Like, I think, spoiler, they will win some series this season just from that map being in their pick, not just floated. So let's wait and see on that one. Okay, right, we actually have a poly market now. So obviously, they have loads of different props over here. I thought this was just a fun one. It's actually right in line with your topic. It's almost like I know what I'm doing here, mate. Apparently, I don't. Apparently, I just fire people from shows and then do what I'm doing. That's what people say. Anyway, oh, shit, that's out loud. Fuck y'all. I know what I'm doing, motherfucker. Anyway, the poly market is at BLAST Open Porto. It's coming up soon. Will Cache be played 5+ times in the group stage? Now, at the moment, it's actually the traders have it at 72% chance. So we can remix some of what we just said. No, do you think it will play 5+ times in the group stage?
It's hard to say, only because EWC had quite a few maps and it wasn't played a crazy amount. But at the same time, the group stage of Porto is relatively long. There's actually quite a lot of matches.
Yep.
So I personally think it will be played more than 5 times. However, 72% chance is a pretty high odd to be picking on. So that's always like a bit of a hard one to look at. But I mean, I think I would say yes. I think 5 times is going to be. I don't want to say it could even be played 7+ because of the way that teams. There's a couple of underdog teams in the bracket. So I think you're going to see teams just picking it, and it's not going to make it to the second stage veto even.
Yes. If people don't know, you have to remember that that's actually the change about Blast now. Now it's like a 16-team tournament with almost like the old ESL, like group style format where you got the double limits. So it's not like old Blast Premier back in the day where it's just 8 teams. So there's going to be a lot of matches. What do you think, Maui? Does it get played 5+ times?
I would say I would pick no. I would pick no because I looked at the numbers for Rotterdam pre-playoffs. There were in total 58 maps played, and Anubis was played twice. And kind of, I would say, Cache of that whole time. Okay. Mirage was played 13, Ancient was played 10, Dust was played 10. So those maps are still gonna get played as they are. But I will say at Rotterdam, Overpass was played 6 times. So
okay.
That's, it's on the edge. Okay. It's on the edge. But I would just, for this value, take no, because Furia Lin Vision won't play it, Legacy FUT won't play it, MOUZ 9Z won't play it. No one's Vitality Inner Circle, they won't play it. Furia Pain, no one's picking it there. Navi M80, they're not playing it. Spirit Dendelay will probably pick it, actually. And then Aurora G2, I don't see anybody picking it. So I'd see for all the first round matchups, no one's picking it. FaZe isn't at this tournament, by the way. So that's another aspect of why it wouldn't be played at this one. So yeah, no, I think looking at the teams, I don't see Dendelay is the only Cache picker of I think all 16 of these teams.
It already has more adoption than Anubis, though, to be fair. If you look at the recent maps that have been played at both EWC and Bounty online, it was played more than Anubis at both. So
Plus,
I think there's actually a solid chance.
I'll just remix what I said earlier. The key detail is this. It's that people aren't permering it. If they were permering it, which is more of the old vertical, then I'd be more scared. But the reason why, because I looked it up, I think there's something like 24 series are played before the playoffs, by the way. So there's a lot of opportunities. Here's why by the way, I don't hate Maui's angle. Like, look, if I was to take Nohte and it's 72% chance that I'm right, then there's insane value there. But I would say the reason I would take it, even at 72% as yes, is I think, first of all, some of these teams, in light of what I just said earlier, when you see how many teams float it to second veto, it's right there to be taken if you're an underdog. Or if you are a team that's a big dog that's struggling, you want a different angle that someone doesn't expect from your it's right there to be picked. Like, you can punish picking a bunch. And also, there's a bunch of times that it would have actually been played at EWC. It just never got to the third map. So I also think if you just have a bunch of lower bracket, 3-game bangers, you'll just get it in enough. Because the key thing here for me is the 5. Like, 5 out of like 24 series isn't that bad, actually. If this was like 5 out of 10 or something, okay, now you're stretching back. No, I think I will take yes for this. I will say yes. I will say it will be played, even if some of that might be wishful thinking. Now then, we will now go on to, I think it's Maui's good, right?
Yeah. Okay, so we've already touched on them very lightly, but I'll bring it up as a formal point, and it's Legacy. The run that Legacy. So obviously, they just beat 2 contenders in a row, beating Falcons, beating NAVI. And I took a much closer look at the NAVI game than the Falcons one. I saw little bits of that one, which we talked about earlier, but I was doing stuff during the second map primarily. And but I will say that versus NAVI, I really loved how Legacy had a great understanding about a lot of the plays that they were going to go for. You still see the individual ability from some of the guys that we talk about. Like, I mean, Dumao and Lado have been talked about for such a long time now, but the difference with Tri is fantastic. He is such a difference maker for this team. In my roster move tier list that I made in the offseason before the matches were played, I put Legacy at the top of A because, and above like teams like Aurora, which had more blockbuster moves, because this was just such a direct upgrade. It's just such a surefire upgrade for Legacy to put Tri in for Sadzin, who Sadzin was fine, but that's all I could give him. He was fine. He had I think maybe one good like one or two good playoff series ever. But Tri has been on underpowered teams, elevating them for such a long time. And I feel like coming into it, people were a little bit worried about Tri because also on Passion UA, he was a little bit streaky, kind of up and down. Dude, that team was a mess. And as we know now, it was even more of a mess than just the fact that they were an international team from like 5 different continents playing together, okay? There was so many aspects of that were going to hold them down. And so to see him back on a Brazilian roster, even though he himself, of course, is Argentinian, doesn't matter. I mean, I think he speaks Portuguese. He's played on enough.
As far as I know, Spanish and Portuguese are like 90% the same as well, so they all vaguely understand each other anyway.
I know. He's
played on a lot of Brazilian lineups. In general.
He's played on them before, so he's got it. He's gonna be able to understand them just fine. He's a huge difference maker. He can take over games. He was responsible for one of the rounds that was like a 5v2 Navi favored, and he just killed 4 of them. Like it was crazy. I mean, he was just destroyed. He's really good with the rifle. He's very fast with the op. He knows how to impose himself. And I am also glad that Nissim is back on this team. I know that is like the that's like the least talked about aspect of this, but Nissim against Navi was just feasting. He's a guy that for a long time also I said that this is a guy that the stats don't show you that he's really actually making a lot of great plays. My joke I always make is Nissim never missing because he doesn't get the glory because he's like oftentimes on the extremity of the map. He's always like, doing this like shitty anchor role that's like, and like, yeah, honestly, his stats sometimes don't always show up because other MFs on the other side of the map have to lose their bomb sites, and then he's got to retake versus the world. And it's like I don't blame him. I don't blame him for these moments. Okay, like I see his stats get hurt because of it, but when I see him on his bomb site, he stays alive for a long time. He oftentimes can get a kill, and it's just almost a matter of does the game plan go at him from the other team? If yes, Nissim will probably have a green rating. If no, then he probably retakes a little bit too much. Okay, maybe you should save a little bit more. Okay, play for rating, Nissim, because I've been saying that you're good for a long time, but the numbers don't always back it up. And I'm glad that he did really well versus Navi, because when he's challenged, and he did well versus Falcons. When he was challenged on his bomb sites, he was able to hold up. T sides as well, picks good timings a lot of the time. And I just think that this team is legitimately, I mean, I think the question to me is kind of like, are they better than like their counterpart, which would be maybe like another South American team like 9Z? Yeah, because they have try. Because like that was the one thing that was holding me back from saying like 9Z is definitely going to be a playoff contender every time last season, because Mayern is buns. He's buns sometimes. He doesn't do anything to help them. Try, dude, this guy has been living a whole life of trying to do more than what his team is going to provide around him. But now he finally has a team that suits him in terms of ability. So I think this is just such a slam dunk, and I'm glad that it's paying off so early in the season for them.
Yeah, I think when you saw him move to Passion UA, a lot of people were excited for him to finally get the chance in a team to prove himself. But obviously, there is both the issues internally in Passion UA, but also a lot of language barrier issues, because you had Senzu there. There is a lot of trouble for someone like Try to adapt. So I think seeing him get this chance at Legacy is a pretty well-deserved one, and he is actually showing why people were kind of rating him as an upcoming opper for a long time. Legacy themselves, I think with the way that they went out of the major, some people just seem to forget that they were already kind of on the upturn before that. Like, yes, obviously they won CAC, and that was, even considering the fact that they went out of the major, they still hadn't had a ton of time with Art as IGL. So now you're actually, I think, kind of like what we were talking about with Falcons before, we're seeing Art Structure actually have time to adapt into this team now, and you're seeing how they can actually perform with him properly implementing his vision. Their results at EWC obviously kind of speak for themselves in that sense. Like you were talking about the way that they played against Navi and seeing the way that Try is actually having impact. It is funny because I remember when the moves happened, I think you were doing your tier list of roster moves, Alex, and you put them in B originally or something, because you were talking about, Nissim being out of the team. And I told you that he benched himself, and you're like, now it's going to be even worse because he's coming back. Like they forced him to come back. Right. But the thing is, I think that's actually the really interesting part about this whole move, is that Nissim did bench himself, and the team actually wanted him to stay, and he was the one who had chosen to leave. And then when obviously they tried to explore some replacement options like Insani that didn't pan out, after that didn't work out and they were still looking for another move, he said, I'm coming back. And they basically said, okay, like, we're not going to talk to anyone else. We want you in our team. And that actually does kind of lead to showing just how important the PC is in the team, that everyone values him. Both the players and the management wanted him back. And you're seeing that kind of structure really pay off for someone like, for a team like Legacy, because let's say they had to make another move, I don't think you would be seeing the kind of structure they have now with this team exist this early on, because right now you're kind of taking Try in and you're trying to slot him in as both the Sadzin replacement, but giving him his own space. And Art talked about in an interview where, there are moments where they're trying to tell Try how to adjust a little bit, because Sadzin was a bit more of a supportive operator. He did have a lot more of those moments where he was playing behind the team rather than making a lot more of the impact kills and taking a lot of those duels. So I think in that sense, you are seeing Legacy still trying to adapt to him. But if they had to make 2 player changes in this situation, I think we wouldn't be seeing the Legacy that we're seeing at EWC. And I think that's really paid off for them here.
Yeah, the thing that, as you say, the real problem is because they didn't have a big result at the major. It's a bit like what happened with Gamer Legion. Both those teams peaked at the end of the season, but because they fucked up the major, no one remembers it. Everyone just remembers like, oh, this is whatever, also ran teams. People forget they not only won the CAC, they were third at that Atlanta, and they beat Navi at that tournament too. Like, they had some good, they beat Falcons obviously to win the CAC, the best of 5. True, Falcons threw it like a motherfucker, shout out NiKo one time. But even so, listen, they all count. If they can get their bullshit wins, the bullshit losses count too, don't they? They all count. That's the whole point. So I actually think, if anything, they were already a team that was kind of interesting anyway. Then what's funny is they actually looked like they blue balls us all, because remember, they tried, it looked like, to make the Brazilian super team outside of Furia. The premise was Nissan was benched. I didn't know it was actually him who benched himself. That's even spicier. And then Sadson was benched. And originally they were trying to get Insani and NQZ. It was going to be banger. But then instead, Insani didn't come. So then Nissan was asked to come back to the team. And then obviously NQC signed with MIBR. And so they end up getting Try, as you say, who's on from Passion UA with that experiment. What's bizarre is, like, I've always rated Try ever since I've seen him play. I don't get it. This is one thing I was saying on Twitter. I don't get what's going on. Like, is there something in the pro scene? This is one of those ones like that Klim move where you're like, there must be something behind the scene on this one, because when I look at it, how the fuck was this guy in Imperial for so long? Then he was on La Passion UA, and at the time he joined Passion UA, like I said earlier, I thought, like, if I was teams like Liquid and FaZe who were dying for an AWP, it's like, you're not even going to give this guy a try. Like, I'll make a point people miss with this guy. He's 21 years old. It's like that Lanks thing again. We all think we've seen him for a million years. He's 21 years old, but he's not 27, and, you know, at the end of his game, in fact, the joke is he's actually safe that's like fucking 30 or something, but still gets to play in Brazil. I don't even know what's going on there, man. It's outrageous. So this guy's always looked good to me. He has like proper AWP skills. He's not just some flash in the pan player. So I think that was kind of a canny pickup. Definitely better than Sadzin. The Nissan one, I've never super rated him, but by the way, he did carry the fuck out of that NAVI series. That was outrageous, yeah. And then if you look at the rest of the team is just good, bro. Like, the coolest thing, if you're a fan of Legacy, is actually Lato before looked like the player where it's like Insane a few months back. Just get him out of this team. He's too good. He needs to be on a better team. Mate, he can stay on this team. He's a top 20 player for me. And on this team, he is going to get a chance to have actual star performances. And by the way, he is a really consistent carry player too. DeMau, I've always thought it's a bit whatever, but I feel like it's a Lato DeMau fucking partnership thing at this point in time. They're going to do the Get Right Forest and just play together for a million. And as pointed out, look, we've been critical of him in the past, and I certainly sided against Art when he was like going at Yanko. But I'll tell you what, fair play to Art. In the same way as when Jim joined Paravision, he did actually, seemingly behind the scenes, take some of the criticism on board and change his IGL and style. Art has definitely leveled up his style, mate. Before that, he was just doing stupid-ass Randy calls, where, like, remember on Fury at the end, he would be, like, running in with the AWP first, and he'd be like, what even is this call? Now he actually has real, actual calls and, like, layered Counter-Strike, and I have seen him now actually outcall some of the best IGLs in the world, so, and I'll point this out as well, because it was just said by Peacemaker to me on Twitter. Bro, I didn't know this one. This is why we don't know the drama in other scenes. You know, in the modern day, right before you leave anyway to go somewhere, they always, like, bench you, like, officially. Apparently, Fluxo benched him, like, not because he was moving to fucking go to Legacy later. They benched him because they didn't want him anymore, mate. They were just like, yeah, you're surplus to requirements on the bench. That is insane. That's why Peacemaker was saying what a joke Brazilian orgs are. Like, that is mental, because it actually turns out the second Fallen retires, this is probably the best Brazilian IGL. Like, as far as I can tell from the body work, he might already be better than Big Zero. Like, this guy's actually going to have potentially like a second arc to his career that's going to be legit. And he was a player where I think a lot of us also worried that he'd done the Yikindar twist thing of like, oh, well, I was a star, so I can be IGL. He actually just looks like a legit IGL, looks good. So all of a sudden, this team, like, let's be real. And I said this on the Overcom show before today's result. Why shouldn't this team be top 10? If I actually look at the pieces and the way they play, I think they are a top 10 team, boys. Like, for me, the two teams that are going to get all this like underdog hype in this tournament, but it's like, it's not hype. They just are top 10. It's them and FUT. Like, boys, these teams are just ready. They're actually ready to be real top 10 teams and go head to head with the likes of the MOUZs and the NAVIs and the teams that aren't these super elite. I mean, the joke here is Legacy beat fucking Falcons. Maybe they can even get the elite teams. Who knows? So I think it's kind of cool. I'm actually looking forward. I also enjoy watching them play. They're not a team that's playing random Counter-Strike. They're playing real CS. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a really good, by the way. It's an obvious one. But if people haven't watched the minutiae of these matches, or you were looking ahead in the bracket to the aforementioned Vitality Fight, go back and watch these games. It isn't just that, you know, someone on Navi played shit or someone on Falcons. These teams took it to them. Like, Legacy actually beat those teams straight up. And in fact, let's be real, surely in future tournaments, they're going to get some more big scalps. It looks kind of cool to me. I'm with you. And doesn't it also, I'll preamble, I'll set it up now. Doesn't it also make that potential Furia has to do a shuffle at the end of the season way spicier if suddenly this team's cooking and they've got a whole bunch of good players? I think right now Brazil's ready to fucking explode again if they get a Brazilian team. All right. I will now go and do my good point. And my good point you know, there's a thing we do on this show, Note, which is, you have to understand, we are self-glazers, bro. Like, me and Maui, I taught Maui this. You know that whole stupid thing of, like, if you're great, you shouldn't say it yourself. Yeah, but the problem is the kind of dickhead who says that never says it if they don't like you. No, you take your fucking credit. Every time you write, you let everyone, you buy skywriting, I was right, you know, like, you do the I am Esports. I do it all, mate. So here's my good point. It's so self-serving, I don't give a fuck, right? If you saw that segment with the lie detector thing where Apex and NiKo were doing the lie detector. By the way, yes, Redditors, we know lie detectors aren't 100% perfect. In fact, it's possible to beat them. But they are actually pretty accurate because most people don't know how to beat them. Guess what? I know Redditors wouldn't understand this. Most people aren't stone-cold sociopaths who have no empathy. Most people couldn't just believe lies that they wanted to believe. I know why you, a Redditor, wouldn't understand that. But for normal people, they will have certain like biological impulses that when they hear something true or false, will be able to be charged. And actually, supposedly the rate is between like 60 and 80% or something accuracy. So even though that segment, yes, you're right, it's very unlikely that is a real lie detector being done. I imagine they submitted the questions before, and the guy, they probably even for entertainment, even let the guy, like, you know what, you can just say whatever you want on this one to make it funnier or something. Because it is almost like essentially just an excuse to do a spicy interview, isn't it? It's not really a lie. But by the way, I don't believe any of these really are lies or shit. It's more just a cool angle to say, let's ask some naughty questions because you're trapped to a lie detector, and then you have a chance to discuss them. So where I'm obviously going with this one is vindication. Vindication. It's only taken 8 years after the guy himself said repeatedly, I was wrong. Oh, what's that, NiKo? Biggest regret of your career? That you kicked karrigan. Brother, can I introduce you to NiKo from 2019? Because he said that never happened, brother. Even though Thorin, the old Thorbeezy, he knows all the players in phase, you dumb fuck. He'd already talked to them all. He'd already done the process of elimination where they all went, well, I didn't agree with it, but at the end of the group was going with it. And then the other one, well, I did sort of, but I was joining in with the other one. And then I just did I had the whole mafia board where I'm figuring out who's the Don and the capo. And I knew it was fucking you, homie. And here's the thing. I don't ever mean, you got me on this technicality, NiKo, well done. Just like a shit CEO of a team in CS, where you get Richard Lewis, where he goes, the player was going to join your team, and he go, he never was offered an official contract. It's like, oh, we all know what he meant, you fuck. You're just using it. So I know you didn't ever go, kick karrigan. What happened was they asked your opinion and you were just like, yeah, I think we should get a different IGL. And that was just one of many opinions, but let's be real, you're the superstar of the team. People forget this. That was 2018 NiKo when he was like a stone cold lock to be a mega player for the next 5 years. He was one of the best players in the world. If that player tells me, yeah, I'd rather have a different IGL, I'm going to get a different IGL, aren't I? Like, remember, karrigan already was fucking donkey's years old then, mate. He was probably already 29 at that point in time. Like, at that point, if I'm picking between those two, that's some Shaq Kobe shit. You always pick Kobe in that one, don't you? He's the young superstar that you want in your team for the face of the org. And also, spoiler, it was right. He ended up being incredibly popular. He's probably the most popular player ever in the history of CS at this point in time. And not only with Chinese fangirls on Tix. He actually has other fans as well as Chinese fangirls. Don't worry, he has fucking tons of Chinese fangirls. He also has he has Chinese fanboys as well to sneak. That's what's cool about him. So anyway, this is the point. Even though it's mad selfish, finally, he's admitted it. Finally, he's admitted that Thorin was right all along. He did kick karrigan. And you know what? You even picked the right time to say it, NiKo. You don't really get that much blowback when you just won the fucking major with him, do you? Like, if you're ever going to admit it, now is the smart time. Because you would have looked really stupid any time before, after karrigan won the major, after you've never won the major, after you choked a million players. But you know what? It's no one else is going to give a fuck outside of this episode. No one will ever say I was right. No one will ever say, probably should have kicked him. Now it all worked out. It was all happy families in the end. But you did kick him. I knew you kicked him. I said you kicked him. And you finally admitted it. There you go. I win. It only took me 8 years to get that vindication. There you go. You guys can even say nothing or anything you want. Thoughts, notes? Do you have any opinion on that?
I don't even know what I can add to this. That was really the only thing I was going to say is that, this is the right time for him to say it if he was going to.
It is.
Really all I had because, I mean, honestly understandable for you to use this as a platform to get it out.
I've been waiting 8 years. 8 years. Any thoughts about what
I mean, I applaud your, investigative abilities. I think a few people could learn a thing or two there. I mean, I think that I like that. I'm glad he finally said something about it. I feel like it was such a weird saving face exercise from
Yes.
NiKo. And also, let's be real. I love working with the guy. I think Yanko was part of it too.
Of
Yanko
course.
was also kind of like
Of course.
the analyst on a lot of the
Yeah.
shows or whatever. That was like,
Yanko
wasn't
was
just
like the defense
NiKo.
lawyer, I know, half the time.
Yeah.
It was outrageous.
Yeah. But it was the reality of the situation. And also, it's like I feel like, you know, there is an honor in a way to doing it where you actually just admit what it is that you're controlling on a team, because at the end of the day, if you succeeded with kicking karrigan, then there's more glory to the victory as well. But if everything is just like, nope, it's not me, my hands are clean of it, then it's just like, well, I don't know. I mean, what would be honestly super sick, I don't know if he said this in other aspects or other parts of that same lie detector episode or whatever it was, if he said, I also was the reason that we brought karrigan, because then you kind of, there's sort of, you know, it's like you made it up. You made it up for yourself, for your team, to karrigan as well. Then it would be even cooler that it would kind of show the circle of maturing.
I'm going off memory here, but I actually believe that Richard did say something like that on like the Four Horsemen, that actually he claims, this isn't like a pure speculation, I believe he has like some context. He says basically within Falcons, the premise was the reason NiKo himself doesn't switch to IGL is it was like a thing where he wanted to win the major before he becomes IGL, and that was the reason they got karrigan. So that might even have been implied actually that he might have actually been one of the people who's like, yeah, bring karrigan then. That's if you're going to do like a Hail Mary, that is the person to bring at the end, right?
It adds to the story if he actually was.
Also, what's mad is I think you were on the Four Horsemen episode I'm referencing, but whatever. I hope it was right what I just said. I think it was. I think that's what Richard said.
He did. Well, yeah, he did say something like that.
I also love the idea that Alex is like, there's some honor in NiKo admitting it. Where did he admit it? A lie detector test.
That's true. That is true.
What did it take for him to do it? A lie detector.
By the way, the other thing he could also do with that, but no one's CS players smart enough to do this. Now that you know all the dickheads on Reddit don't believe it's real, if they ever gives an answer you don't like, just go, this thing's fucking rigged. That's not what I think. It's all fake, and storm out. Like, mate, everyone on Reddit will be on your side. They'll be like, see, I knew it wasn't real. The lie detector. They got it. Also, by the way, I will point this out. The reason I myself even mellowed on that exact topic of NiKo kicking karrigan is I've always said this. The only reason I was mad is because I also knew from behind the scenes, and I got a lot of this on camera on like reflections interviews over the years. It wasn't that they kicked karrigan. I actually think that was okay at the time. I've always said this. That was the time period when karrigan used to choke all the finals. By the way, the irony being NiKo himself later became a choker, but at the time karrigan was a guy who would, now we all say he does the golden call. He would do the fucking bronze call in the 29th round, mate. He'd call the really safe play that didn't do anything, and he fucking lost, like the Boston Major final. Whereas the difference is, I actually think it was getting kicked and having to go to MOUZ and re-earn his whole reputation that made him into this like clutch guy, because I always felt like once he dropped down, he just figured, fuck it, I'm just going to send it every single time now, and if I die, I die. I died a million times anyway. I'm just going to go for the win. And didn't that make him kind of like what we were talking about earlier, the coolest caller ever, who'd go for the crazy swing for the fences play? And I actually think in a weird way, because NiKo himself became a choker later, it allowed some like cool anime arc where they met up at the end and sort of were like the fucking star-crossed lovers who were always supposed to be together, but they met up with all the, maybe the real kick was the lessons we learned on the way, all that shit, isn't it? Like, and in the end, it was actually a coolest. That's why I say also, you picked the right time, bro. You just won the major. We'll all forgive you now, won't we? Doesn't matter, you got a major in the end. Would have been bad if you never got the major. Like that would have
perfect for one of those Flashpoint animated intro videos. Honestly,
oh mate, we could have had some amazing shit on that. I know, because it'd be that whole like they expect one of us in the wreckage, karrigan, and then NiKo pilots out with phase or something. He's what? Kicking you would be very painful. Some shit like that. Exactly. Whatever. Anyway, speaking of prize kicks, what about prize picks? Because that's something totally different. But if you are in any of the 50 states of the US, you can play prize picks, and they have all sorts of sports. Obviously, there's always sports running in different seasons. There's women's basketball's going right now. The NBA is going to be coming on soon. They're actually an official daily fantasy partner of the NBA, if you don't know. They have obviously, I can tell you right now, European football, soccer starting soon. American football will be starting up soon. Prize Picks is super easy to play. All you do is pick between 2 and 6 of their stats projections. Really simple. What they basically do is, for all the matches, they just pick a bunch of the players. They do a stats projection for each stat category. How many 3-pointers will this player make? How many touchdowns will this quarterback throw? How many, whatever, goals will be scored in a certain sport? And then when they say 3 for a player, You go either from your gut or luck, or you study the game a little bit, you do a little bit of analysis, and you decide, will it be more or less? All you do is pick more or less. You don't have to do anything with a number. It's really, really simple. You can basically do your picks in like 30 seconds. That's one of the coolest things about it. And it's actually quite a social thing you can play, because you can actually tell other people who are winning lineups. You can just copy their picks if you want, or you can actually copy your picks and show them to friends and stuff and say, I'm picking this one, or you're picking that one. So there's a whole bunch of elements in it that are fun. And as I said, they've got loads of different spots there. So download the app today and use code SNAKE to get $150 instantly in lineups if you win your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code SNAKE to get $150 instantly in lineups if you win your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app. You like the way I do that note, the way I sort of change the intonation and the inflection on the second one to sound like I'm not just repeating the same thing again, because I'm actually legally required in the document to just repeat it exactly verbatim again, but I make it sound different. That's actually a secret to doing my talk shows. Say the same things, but slightly differently, and making people think you're saying it for the first time. Oh no, I've given away too much of the secret sauce there. Anyway, let us now go and do the last section, which is obviously the ugly section, the section that Donna calls launders. And old school reference there, if you know that one, a few years old, that was at this point. It was a fucking banger though. So in the ugly section, what are we going with here, Note? What's ugly right now?
Yeah, I honestly thought you might have picked my ugly to start the show, because I think my ugly is that HeavyGod re-signed his contract with G2 in June.
Okay, not a G2 believer that I'm guessing. Okay, I see where this is going.
So it's for multiple reasons. One is, I think, yes, I don't have faith in G2 being a consistent title contender, and I think HeavyGod is the caliber of a player who is a consistent title contender. So yeah, you might have G2 make a run to a title here and there over the next year or two, however long he re-signed his contract for. But are we really realistically thinking that G2 with this roster, or even with one roster change, is going to be a consistent trophy contender? I don't think so. And you're kind of seeing it illustrated even now with the consistent level they bring to events. Like, yes, they can usually make playoffs. They can usually make it to quarters or semis or wherever. But in terms of them actually competing for trophies, they're not really there. And I don't see one change or two changes really pushing that barrier. The other part of this is, I think there are so many teams who are title contenders already,
yes,
who could benefit from HeavyGod being on their team. Now, I went through Luz's roster simulator move, and I did this even a couple of months ago, I think, before Falcons brought on karrigan even. And he is a 1-to-1 role fit for TESS. And obviously it seems crazy now because they just won the major. But when you consider the position Falcons was in back then, like HeavyGod as a 1-to-1 replacement for TESS in every single role is a crazy fit for that team. But even if you move away from Falcons, okay, if you go on to Furia, for example, 1-to-1 replacement for Yuri, almost exactly. A bit more of a strange one, because I think, is that really like an amazing move when Furia are not really firm as to what their roster will be at the end of the year? Not necessarily. But the biggest one, I think, when you look at the way teams are currently looking at their overall form, is Spirit.
Yep.
Like, you've seen Spirit struggle for consistent performances. Obviously, they just beat Vitality, but like 1-to-1 event to event, the level that Zontix is bringing is such a shadow of the player that people thought he was, because he obviously was a consistent anchor back when he was originally on the roster, but ever since he returned, he's been struggling a lot. And when you look for a positional match, he fits into a lot of Zontix's roles right now. And the ones that he doesn't are already like weird outliers that I don't think Zontix should even be playing. Like, why is Zontix playing Catwalk on Mirage? Why is he playing the mid-aggressor on Ancient? Like, what are these positions for Zontix? It doesn't make any sense. So 1-to-1, he matches Zontix for a lot of the other spots that he could play. He also speaks Russian. So when you have that kind of player with that caliber able to slot into a team like Spirit, as I said, HeavyGod is he is a title contending caliber player already. So putting him into a Spirit that is already realistically a title contender because of Donk, and having such a stable presence in the server round to round is the exact kind of thing that Spirit are missing right now. So I think it would elevate Spirit. I think it would bring HeavyGod the kind of titles he deserves. So when you look at all of that and you bring it full circle, he's just re-signed a contract 2 months ago. That ostensibly locks him into G2 for at least a year, unless organizations want to then come and pay a very significant buyout. Now, obviously, that might still happen. I'm not ruling it out, but I think if you look at HeavyGod's potential and the timing that he re-signed this contract, which was shortly before stage 2 of the major, that just doesn't make any sense to me, because you're going to have so many teams looking at a potential move in the offseason, and you've now locked yourself out of this conversation entirely. Also, if you look at it, there's other potential moves that could work. Like there's NAVI as well, but it's not really a one-to-one role fit. You have a lot of teams that could be looking for a player of his level that he would just be an instant upgrade and make them title contenders. And I just don't see him fulfilling that role on G2 for in the near future.
I'll start with, I mean, I'll say that the extending contracts hasn't locked players in. You mentioned it, but it hasn't locked players or coaches in as much as the name sounds, or I guess the action is like Ash signed an extension with Game Religion. He left that year. True. So and Yimpat had like a MOUZ extension, and then he left like less than a year and a half later. So people do get out of those more than I would expect, despite the fact that they announced those kinds of things. So I have hope that he could make the move. And I would just say the one slam dunk one you mentioned though is definitely Spirit. I did like a revised anchor tier list for the year, and I put Zontix in the D tier and HeavyGod basically in the S tier. I mean, it would change everything. It would absolutely change everything for Spirit because then you could actually rely, because yeah, I mean, sometimes Tanir isn't always there. I mean, today I think he did decently, but for a lot of the time he's been with Holly, he's been pretty mediocre, in all honesty, on CT sides. But then when he was with Sotfik, he did really well. It was like a huge jump. It was pretty.
He's also an okay replacement for Tanir, by the way, role-wise. It was a pretty similar role match to Zontix. I think it was like 76 on Loz's predictor. But obviously Zontix is a better fit overall.
Yeah, I would just I would just go for Zontix. Also, I don't think that roles today even matter that much for HeavyGod, when I've literally seen him play like 3 different spots on Mirage in the last 3 years. Like he was playing like Cat, he's played B, I think he's played A, like, you know, that's just it's enough. Like I've seen that he can play any site on any map, and he's just an upgrade. And I like that, the fact that you brought it up as an ugly point though, because he should be contending for titles on a regular basis. You're right that G2 are not in that position right now. The Wrinkle move that they made, even though I like some of what I saw from Wrinkle, I actually went through all of his demos that he played versus top 30 teams at EWC. Some of those stats are a little inflated, I'll be honest. Even as a big Wrinkle defender, like he's
eco fragging a lot, right?
He wasn't eco fragging, he was exit fragging. He's getting a lot of exit frag. Yeah. It was a lot of kills where, and also he took over some rounds. Like he actually really imposed himself versus Astralis a couple times, but versus some of the other teams, I feel like he was just doing all right. But it just didn't make, like, that was kind of my ugly point before. I like Wrinkle. I like Wrinkle. I don't think he was the fix for G2. That was my main take. I just think that they're like, Nerds to me has been such a curious prospect for them in general. I think that was just a Nepo kind of hire from Saw, actually. And I think that if you looked at his performance on Liquid, there was very little merit to that pickup. And you just hope that he would be able to revitalize him, which is betting on yourself if you're Saw. So I kind of get it, but it hasn't panned out in that way. And I think it's a good ugly point, just because it's a weird topic. Like, G2 is an organization that's big enough that you should feel safe and secure for signing yourself to them. But at the same time, if a player like HeavyGod is one of the 3 best anchors in the world for me. It's him, Bit, and Rops. That's it. Like, I think they are the best 3 of the last 8 or 9 months. And this is not a team that is a top 3 team. So you would think that you should be on a team that suits that capability. So you're going to see him very frequently trying to drag a team up. But again, per that position, you just like, as an anchor, you could hold your bomb site every single time that they go to it in a half, and you still only win 4 CT rounds in a half. That's just how that role works. So I think it's a really cool point that you brought up, and it's a good discussion topic.
But to tie it to the earliest topic on the show, this is why, actually, unfortunately, I can also see why he's done it, because the example is, if you have a chance to sign a long-term contract with G2 Esports, that might be the best esports org in the world. Like, that's one of the few ones you could look at and go, it'll be here in 10 years, it'll probably still be a giant org, so got amazing sponsorships in all the games. It seems like they feel competitive rosters. There's legendary players that have been in these orgs. Like, that is an org that, in theory, yeah, you should want to stay on, right? Whereas, like, there's other orgs, like Team Spirit's already cool now because of Donk, bro. Like, we barely know, who the fuck knows what that org is? And in fact, I'll actually even say, on a scaled down level, it's why I actually, sadly, even though I don't like it competitively, it's why I also don't blame X Kaspersky for signing with NIP. He's thinking it's NIP, bro. They've always been around. Remember, I used to be on bloody Ents, which is like, again, like a budget org, and, you know, what other teams would I have gone to? Maybe I could have been on a Gamer Legion, you know. Compared to that, these are established orgs. The problem in this case, and it's appropriate for both teams, is these players are just way better than the fucking teams they're on. They're overqualified. And I totally agree with you. He could quite literally tomorrow walk into one of those teams. You pick the two obvious ones, Falcons and Spirit. Not only would his role, he would be an upgrade, they would just instantly become number one. Like, he has shown he is an absurdly consistent player. And I agree with Maui as well. The worst thing about him being on G2 is, individually, that is probably also the worst fucking role to be the star player from if you want to hard carry games. Like, in fact, I'll even say this. It's one of the reasons, if everyone wonders, why go so hard at Hunter? Because I'll just say this. Hunter isn't even CS royalty. Everyone just likes him. He's just a very amiable person who doesn't ever say any things that make you dislike him. But I think he is actually carrying Hunter's arse right now. Because I always tell people, if you think how he plays on T-side, that's when he gets all those frags, that's not some part of the strat. He's like the eraser that takes away all the mistakes that they made in the fucking round. Like, if anything, that's why I'm very skeptical of Hunter's calling. It's like, you've got this guy doing all this crazy late round work, and then you're just fucking still losing games that are already close. Like, bro, what would happen if you had just a normal player in that spot? If you did the wins over replacement, you'd just be like the fucking 14th best team in CS or something. Like, you wouldn't even be relevant. And also, yes, everyone remembers now, but Darren, they won Blast London. They haven't made another semi-final. Literally, it's mental. Like, they haven't even been in the semis of any other tournament. Like, that is the most greatest definition of a fluke I've ever seen. Like, it's never happened since. And by the way, it's not him. He plays fucking dynamite almost. Also, by the way, let's be honest, one of the highest floors of any player in Counter-Strike. He's a really, really strong, consistent player. And as pointed out, I'll even add a detail people might not realise. You might worry if you want to do the Spirit move, because I also think the Spirit move's a banger, by the way. When I just did this roster mechanic with Loz, we found out some things, as usual, that are nightmare fuel, bro. Like, first of all, they actually are giving Zontix, as you pointed out with some of the spots, the resources to be a star player, and then he is putting in unbelievably shit numbers. Also, you can just mathematically, like Vu did with a computer, prove he is shit at aiming in CS. Like, the whole thing's just nightmare fuel all across the fucking board. He's getting good guns, he's got spots, so it's not even like you'd be joining and you're thinking the old Zontix, like, oh, he's going to join and have bad roll. He'd join and be a star player. They just win tournaments immediately. I even agree with the today one. If you want to force him in the light, you can do that one. And here's a detail people might have missed. You might look and go, well, he speaks Russian, but he is Ukrainian, Thorin. He played in the Russian Cloud9. That tells me he's not one of those ones. He's
Israeli.
Yeah, but he also has like dual nationality, I believe. I believe he's also like Ukrainian as well. Yeah, I could be wrong on that, but I'm fairly sure.
He had dual flags before on certain like
I'll double check now, but I think I'm correct that he's Ukrainian as well. But let me just double check that. Yes, it's Israel and Ukraine are the flags he has on Wikipedia. Gotcha. So anyway, but the point is, there are some Ukrainians who've said before, I've never played with a Russian team, or like Simple Famous did. But because he was on the Russian Cloud9 anyway, I'm pretty sure he doesn't have an issue with that also. So to me, because that's another, by the way, that's another reason it's crazy he's in G2. He should be the most eligible player in the whole world. Nobody's a fucking star from ankle rolls. He speaks fluent English, has been on a bunch of teams, and he can speak Russian as well. Mate, the world should be your oyster, but unfortunately, you've locked yourself in a room with Wrinkle, Hunter, and fucking nerds. Like, brother, this is a nightmare. This is actually nightmare fuel, bro. And by the way, not like Matisse is cooking either. Like, that is a tough squad to be in. So I also feel like he must be the biggest Saw believer of all time. He must just believe this guy's going to, and maybe he will. I don't even hate on Saw, but I'm with you. G2 could have many times on these episodes have been in the bad or the ugly, and we all expect more from them. So I agree with you. I actually think it's really sad. And I'll even give you a reason why before anyone does. They're like, but Thorin, Spirit just beat Vitality and they're going to win EWC. If you watch that Vitality series, I watched the first two maps before we did this show. Donk had like 49 kills over 2 maps and they almost lost. Vitality could literally have won that. By the way, you slot HeavyGod in, we're just fucking winning these games comfortably. Because the other thing about Spirit is, everyone's noticed this and run the stats. Spirit, by the way, is one of the few elite teams I've ever seen who are always going to be playing 3 maps in every fucking series they play. It's outrageous. These guys can't win 2 maps in a row to save their fucking life. So it's going to be so much hard work for them to win tournaments this season. If they had HeavyGod, it'd be fucking amazing. And also, I'm with you on the Tessus one. Mate, right now when you've won the major, you're not going to make the change. At the end of this season, if Tessus hasn't been that good, he hasn't won any trophies. Oh, could you imagine putting HeavyGod with these guys? Brother, they would fucking destroy team. Also, if you're karrigan, you get to stay another year, don't you? It's like, actually, now I've got HeavyGod and MOUZ and NiKo and mate, you could probably play 3 more years and have 0 kills if they actually nerf the 5-7 like Maui sadly told the Valve devs to. Well, luckily, here's the good news, Maui. We all know if you tell the Valve devs to do it, they'll never do that. They'll just go, all right, I've changed it. There you go. I've made the fucking, I've made like a fucking different bomb. Now the bomb explodes.
Now $100.
Yeah, I know, exactly. They always
change the sounds that it makes.
I've always felt Valve is that meme of the 3 people in that meeting, and then one guy goes, why not change the 5-7? And he gets thrown out the window, and then they just like, no, then we've given you a new thing where the bomb explodes and you can see if it's going to explode. Whoever asked for that? Who in the fucking world ever asked for that, bro? Like, that's why I'm scared to ask him for anything. Don't ask for anything. The game's not totally fucked up yet. Let's just keep it as it is. I'm scared. Don't change it. Anyway, Maui, what is your ugly point?
My ugly point is a tournament that I was never going to watch, but I still think that it's an ugly point that it no longer is going to happen. That is ENC. That ENC not actually happening. They say one thing. They say one thing that it's because of I think they said something kind of about like the geopolitical situation. Yeah. But at the same time, this is the exact same time the Wall Street Journal just reported about the fact that they pulled out of Neon, which is a $50 billion investment, and now they're moving away from that too. We've also talked about the fact that they pulled out of the whole like that golf league that they were trying to put together too. They were LIV Live Golf. Yeah, they pulled out of that too. And now this is not happening, but we know they could just relocate it. If they wanted to relocate it, they did that with the Esports World Cup, but now so it kind of just feeds into the whole making these promises bigger than they can even deliver on regarding these kinds of events. And I feel like it's kind of a reason that I've sort of like personally separated ESL from like the Esports World Cup branding on a personal level, because I think ESL, regardless of whether the Saudi investment dries up or they pull out completely, I think ESL will exist in some form after whether Saudis are involved with gaming in general. But it does feel like the whole Esports World Cup angle or Esports Nation Cup angle is probably it's almost in a way too good to be true regarding this whole like this open tournament, this $2 million prize pool. Dude, the viewership is not pulling like a major or anything like that, and they're definitely from what I had heard in the past about certain events with ESL, they were putting more resources into the Esports World Cup and making that run as well as they could, including people that are tasked with working on these teams than like Cologne, for example. So it's a warning sign. It's a greater, and I will say this, even though I was never going to watch it, I do feel bad for the players that qualified for the tournament, also that went through those. It would have been cool to click the results page and see the Canada team had won an event or won a couple of matches. Again, wouldn't have watched it, wouldn't have even tuned in for a second of it. But if Steel wins a BO3 versus like some tier 1.5 players in 2026, that would have been kind of neat to even see that as a result.
Steel beating JL's Lithuania in the grand finals.
Yes, exactly. It would have been just glory. Beautiful, beautiful stuff.
I think especially the timing of it is really rough, and why it makes it a really good ugly point is that you just had all of these qualifiers play out. Like you had all of these teams, these kind of cool mixed teams that were a fun thing to kind of witness and see as, some of these players who have been on different rosters kind of coming together and having a little fun in this qualifier. And after all of those qualifiers play out, the entire event gets postponed, and none of those qualifiers really matter because they're going to have to run them all over again. So I think the timing of it is really rough in that sense, because there was some excitement building for those. I know that, again, as you kind of said, I wouldn't personally watch it. I mean, I would watch it because I would probably have to write about it. But if I didn't have to write the news story about it, I probably wouldn't watch those games, right? But I think there were a surprising amount of comments from people who were like, "Oh yeah, like I actually am interested in this because it's, you know, I get to cheer for my country or whatever." And I think there was a little something cool to that. And the fact that it's suddenly just postponed now, and realistically, I am curious if it does happen next year for the reasons you were kind of talking about. And yeah, I think overall it's something that they realistically, I feel, could have moved to a different location to just play out this year anyway. But so I'm surprised that they just canceled it entirely or postponed, as they say. But yeah, I think overall you're right in that the ENC ESL divide is definitely something that is more noticeable now than it was a year ago, I think.
Okay, one of these sentences you never thought you'd hear me say out loud, but this isn't a Hassan Piker podcast, so we're not going to go into this too much. But if you don't know, the reason there isn't an EWC in Saudi Arabia right now is because basically there's like drone attacks that happened in Saudi Arabia, so it's no longer, even though, by the way, this is actually a real bummer for their marketing, because they were trying to sell it like a bit like Dubai, as like you come in, it's really safe, and it's none of those things you've heard about in the past, it's really modern and Western. Well, the problem is if a drone blows up a fucking building that you could have been in, you're going to go, actually, you know what, maybe I'll just go to like fucking Spain for my holiday or something like that. That's not going to happen there, is it? So that is the reason why at the moment there is no EWC actually in Saudi Arabia. It's not in Riyadh, which obviously that was a core part of the EWC. But people might misunderstand, because as you say, if you can do EWC in Paris, why not just do ENC? Here's why. Because ENC is a much smaller project that has a very specific goal in mind, that even though EWC shares that goal, the amount of investment and the amount of attention all the orgs as well as EWC have put into that tournament means you could not cancel or delay that tournament. Like, if people don't know, over the years, one of the reasons why there are so many different games that are now played by teams that weren't in them, I'll give you an example. When EWC began, Vitality got like a fucking really good StarCraft 2 player. They weren't in fucking StarCraft 2. There was a load of games. There's all those ones nobody even knows, Mobile Bang Bang and all these fucking games that they're playing in Asia. What happened was EWC basically gave big team orgs stipends, an amount of money to go and get players to play in those games. Look, the reason why is obvious. They want it to look like everyone competes in all the games, and then they compete in about twice as many, by the way, and then win their own tournament every time as Falcons. Oops, did I say Falcons is them? Oh no, I wonder if that's true or not. So the joke is, part of it almost is some like, the Emperor's son gets to win the fucking competition because the knight at the end lets him win the jousting. Oh, he's won again. Can you believe it? So part of it is they want everyone to play in all the games. So at this point, there are so many millions of dollars tied up with that tournament every year that they have to run it, and they want Falcons to win it. So it's actually a big deal to run it. The difference with the ENC is, ENC, if people don't know, is actually like almost like the beginning of a project that could be like EWC one day. That basically, again, this is some Four Horsemen shit you can go watch the episodes for. Basically, the Saudis previously, before they did ENC, were actually trying to just work with the Olympic Committee and do like esports in the Olympics. And there's even a detail about that, by the way, that is crazy work if you're one of those people who's got your head in the sand over who the Saudis are and what they're into. Are you ready for one of the reasons why the Olympic Committee are the ones who backed out that deal? If you don't know, by the way, guys, the Olympic Committee, like FIFA, are some of the most, I will allege, are some of the most corrupt motherfuckers in the world, who almost certainly take giant, in English political culture, it's called bongs. It's a bribe, basically. It's the idea someone under the table behind it just gives you a sack of money and then magically you do the thing that they want, right? The reason it's crazy they were the ones that pulled out is, listen to the reason why, one of the reasons they pulled out. Because the Olympic Committee was basically like, you do know though, if we partner with you, you have to allow like some women into management positions, and also you can't just decide what countries get to compete. And the Saudis were like, we're going to push back against that. Like, and that's why the deal didn't happen, because their whole shit was like, women? Well, that's a deal breaker, and I can't even decide to kick out countries I don't like. What the fuck is this? It's like, yeah, because it's the Olympics, bro. It's the fucking Olympics. Like, what are you talking? So anyway, that's one of the reasons why they did ENC. That was their answer, was, right, fuck it. We'll do it ourselves without blackjack and hookers. It would obviously be the joke in their country, wouldn't it? So not even as good. But anyway, they've decided not to do it. And also, let's be real, because it hasn't gotten going yet, and I can tell you the other problem you're going to have is, you already saw this from Vitality. Some orgs have already made it clear, we're not going to put our players in this, mate. It's right in the middle of the season. It's before the fucking major. We've also got all these, like, we're already playing a million tournaments. People are already asking, can we skip tournaments? children be bored or have a break. We're not going to say you also have to play in some weird national tournament that really is more for the smaller players. So unfortunately, I also just think it wouldn't have hit the headlines this year. So I imagine once you can go to Riyadh again, they'll immediately resurrect this tournament. It'll start running again. I imagine it probably will be more like we were talking about this. It'll more be like the people who are teamless or they just aren't in a top team and they're not going to be at the major or something. There'll be people like that who are in it. But it does mean one day, maybe 5 years down the line, they have so much money in it and it's so big and it's Olympics, and maybe then they can make it sort of real thing in the calendar that actually teams play and ZWU and Apex play, etc. But if you don't know, they weren't going to play this year anyway. It was basically already said they didn't have to, which by the way means they're not going to. Like, not that they don't. It's not their choice. They were never going to choose to go to it. I also don't imagine. Because of the fact that you have to have all people from your country. People are forgetting that part too. There's not that many countries that have a bang of 5-man lineup. Spoiler, Russia would be fucking smurfing this tournament. The joke is they would just have Morrissey and Donk, wouldn't they? Wouldn't they just be unbelievable? But I think a lot of countries, including France, would have scuffed lineups like 3D Max plus Apex and ZWU doesn't automatically win. You might come out round of it and you wasted your time going.
I think the UK had one of the best rosters.
They actually didn't have a bad one. The joke is because none of the fuckers are in real teams, are they? So yeah, we actually had half decent one of real players. I know. Anyway, we'll now move on because, so there's another poly market, and it is obviously who actually, will there be 5+ Cache? Who actually wins BLAST Porto? Now, the reason I picked this gentleman is because I feel like it got a whole lot fucking sexier after the results we know from EWC, isn't it? Because before that, we were all like, well, I think Falcons going to dominate. It'll be Vitality, you fool. Now, who even knows at this point in time? So, here's the question. Who will win BLAST Porto? Nohte. Who will win it?
I mean, honestly, as we were kind of talking about earlier, the safe pick is Vitality. And out of this, especially with the fact that they've now lost 3% after losing to Spirit, I would take Vitality in a heartbeat here. Especially because, as we've talked about, Falcons still can't really trust their consistency.
No.
Spirit, we literally just talked about how they should make a roster change. And MOUZ is really, I'm surprised MOUZ has gone up considering that they also were eliminated. So yeah, Vitality at 20% is not a bad shout here, honestly.
Who are you taking?
I don't believe in the JL Vitality, which this one will.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Shit.
It's JL for Mezzi on this one.
You're
I'm
so
gonna,
right.
Yeah.
I'm that's okay, bestie. Well,
I'm gonna change my pick. You know what? We're actually back on the Falcons train. We're so back.
Yes. Yes. Rope them back in.
Not jail believe back in. Okay.
I'll take Falcons. I'm just gonna keep doubling down on Falcons. I know they're gonna, sell me down a river a couple of times this season, as they already did with EWC, but you know what? I'll just double it. Just double or nothing on this one. So yeah, I would personally take Falcons on this. I don't know if it's going to get much better than 24% at any given time. So especially with them losing to Legacy as well. So it looks like it lost a bit of percentage today. So yeah, I'm going to take Falcons.
All right, this is actually a tiny bit serious, but I'm also doing it for comedic effect. Since they're down to 20%, I will take Vitality with big Easter Island head GL, because here's why. I want them to win that tournament, and then when they go, oh, GL was like fitting in, I'm going to go, no, GL, the reason I know Vitality is the GOAT lineup of all time is they can even win with you, bro. You're washed. So that's what I want to happen. I want to see them win with, because it'll almost be at this point in time. I actually do think, to make a serious point, by the way, I actually do think if you are people like Apex, you will still gone to try and win this tournament to sort of show like, look, I'm a goat in my role too. I don't need the whole lineup. So we can win. We're so good. We can win even with the standing. Remember, that was even a famous thing of karrigan in that GOAT conversation is he wins with the standings, doesn't he? That was the thing he had over Glim. Would be pretty cool if you're Apex, you can win a fucking tournament. People forget they played those tournaments a couple of years ago when they used to have Jacks come in pretty seriously and they used to all be in winning position in those too. So I actually don't think they will just phone this in. I think if they were going to do that, they just wouldn't even attend. So I actually think they will actually play properly and they'll try to do it all. Look, I don't think they'll be as good as with Mezzi. I think Mezzi does like fill in a lot of gaps in your team. But here's the thing, even though I'm joking, Jail isn't terrible. I'm sure he'll be all right. He'll be like a mid-level tier 1 pro. So if anything, I want to see, can ZWU super carry, can Rops win all the clutches, can Apex call some loose enough game that fucking Jail can understand? Again, if he can turn to page 17 for Blade, he can surely follow a fucking strat, can't he? So I'll be silly and say, because it's 20%, the value's crazy. I'm going to take Vitality. Famous last words, maybe. Anyway, we will now go to my good point, bad point, ugly point. There you go. And I have purposely saved it till now because without doing the whole thing, which I do every episode where I explain what is ugly and it's not good and it's not bad. But this is the one that really does slot in there because I actually don't want to overreact to this. I think that I had a fairly reasonable take on MOUZ when they won Blast Bounty, which is I gave them mad props for everything they did. They did play way above the level. I even think the way they immediately integrated all those, but I didn't think that would work. But I thought those roles would clash. I also thought to myself, you've got both PR, who's basically a baby when it comes to playing big games, and Zelix is absolutely a baby. He's fresh faced as well. I remember thinking there's so many ways this can go wrong. In the same ways I didn't overreact to the win. I'm not overreacting to this loss. They're still a fucking good team. By the way, I actually said earlier, just like the Legacy NAVI, FUT's good. FUT is not a bomb team. That isn't like you lost to FUT. Like, FUT is good, and they beat them also earlier in this tournament, if people don't know. My issue is this. I do think MOUZ, I have to put them in ugly, because, bro, as much as they've just won a tournament, I don't know if they're winning another trophy this season. Like, I really feel like there's a world where the good news is this. They don't look like they'll be the bot. The difference is when I look at Navi, it's going to be a very boring team. If that's fifth, it's going to be fifth, like totally. Like it'll be like, you won't make many semis. You'll be in all the playoffs. The difference is I could see MOUZ being a bit more, up and down, but I have a hard time seeing this person as an elite team. And I know everyone wanted to get on board after, by the way, I'm also a big fan actually of Cyclone. I think he's done a fucking amazing job. It's clearly his team at this point in time, isn't it? He's in the Mara Blade category where it's your project, man. It's not the IGL. So I want to know what you guys think. I think it's ugly because, look, to lose to FUT twice is kind of not really the way you want to lose this tournament, is it? You want to be losing to Vitality or because if you do that, we can say you're right there still. Maybe you get the next one. Maybe you get the right. And didn't we all say when this bracket was released, if you're MOUZ, same with Furia, you should be saying I'm in the final. That's the fucking path for me. So what do you think of MOUZ, boys?
Yeah, I mean, when I was also picking my topics for the show, I considered MOUZ as one of mine as well, because I think they are in this position where I honestly wasn't sure how they'd perform this season, but the fact that they won the trophy at Bounty, I saw that going one of two ways afterward. One would be they would have that mentality of we've finally gotten that trophy and we can do it. And they've actually kind of broken that mental barrier in a way. But it almost seems like it went the other way, because having watched a couple of their games here, it was just so unconvincing the way that I was watching them play, especially the game against Gamer Legion. That game, I think we saw Zelix really struggle and show a lot of his I guess inexperience, but also some of his nerves as a rookie. There was a lot of mistakes made by him on the first two maps in that series, and then they really only came around on that last map. The other part of it is that I'm still not 100% sold on Exertion's calling. Not that I don't think he can be a consistent in-game leader for them, but it's just there's not anything that makes me think that MOUZ will be a consistent, always in the fight for a trophy contender right now. I think you kind of nailed it, Thorin, in the sense of they do kind of look like a team that could very much go up and down throughout this season. And they could win another title. They could more than likely make semis like they were before, occasional group stage exits. I don't see the consistency from them that I kind of expected that this bounty trophy might unlock a little bit. If anything, I think it showed a lot more hesitance this event than I expected.
I'll have slightly higher hopes for MOUZ than how they performed at this one. That comes from, of course, watching Bounty. I also find that when you have an IGL that can shoot really hard, it actually puts you in contention sometimes for matches that you otherwise shouldn't be. Even for example, Hunter, when he won that London event, he had a 1.09 rating. Yeah. And that helps. Like that helps. Okay, I know that everybody wants to dream that karrigan can put up 0.5 ratings and win, but like that's kind of he's the exception. He's not the rule. Okay, and I find that even kind of going back historically, I think there's been kind of a weird amount of IGLs that played really like surprisingly well in a tournament that they then end up winning, and that obviously helps bolster the team in some respect. Like MSL probably got completely dissolute. He got a little delusional of how consistent he can play at that level, but it obviously helped him win a tournament. And so that's why I have MOUZ in the running a little bit more. Also, I think that like Zelix is just I think he's just getting his feet wet in this. I think PR is having to sort of have a mindset change from when he was on Gamer Legion 2. This is a team that I've seen glimpses enough from both Zelix and PR that I am actually taking the rare position for myself where I'm saying I'm down to give him a little bit more time. I'm down to also see as a couple of the other contenders seemingly flounder or also show inconsistencies like Falcons, like Vitality with JL. I think that MOUZ isn't going to be an elite contender. Like, I don't think they're going to be a top 3 team, but I could totally see them being like a top. I mean, I think that they should be in semifinals more regularly than this. I am disappointed in the FUT loss. Like, that goes without saying. I thought it was them or Furia for sure out of that other side of the bracket. But I also think, okay, so another point or reason that I have a lot of faith in MOUZ is Cyclone, who was brought up earlier, but I have him right now as top 3 coach in the world. He's going to get more out of these pieces than some of the other guys that are just kind of there. They're placeholder figures for me who could probably be replaced by another handful of people. Cyclone is irreplaceable. He's one of the few irreplaceable coaches.
He's also another thing that's continued at this tournament from the last one. He's got fucking Torji cooking, bro. Like, you could say early coming into this year, Torji looked like he fell off a bit, man. He was one of those names that was going to be in the mix. Like, should we get better off? He's been cooking the last few events, mate.
Spinks is another guy. Yeah.
I was just going to say quickly on the Zelix PR point, I'm not saying that I think that they shouldn't be given the time, but I think that because of the fact that they need to be given time, they're not going to be title contenders quite consistently yet.
Yeah, I would just say for a team that had a little less fanfare than the Aurora moves, I'm taking MOUZ for the season easily. As a team to consistently get deeper into some of these tournaments. I just have seen enough. I've seen enough from the core trio already. I've seen how Exertion is able to maintain really strong numbers wall calling. I'll even take a little bit of issue with the maybe it's not like super always perfect game planning and convincing, but Cyclone makes better game plans than almost any coach that I see today. And even if the players aren't able to carry that out, as a whole, I would say that he's going to bolster the team more than hinder it. Whereas sometimes I think Blade has maybe run a little dry on some of his ideas. I think Cyclone still has plenty. And it's up to PR for me to, if PR can hit the highs that he had with Gamer Legion in his first, I'd say 7 months with them before Snacks and before Ash left, then this team is legitimately a top 5 regular mainstay.
So when you say you would take them to go deeper into tournaments in this season, are you saying that you see them as consistent finalists? Because their position for a lot of last year, a lot of the last basically year and a half has been semifinals. Like, they've been semifinal teams more regularly than not. And if not semifinals, 5th to 6th. So are you saying that you expect them to be past that?
I was saying that I just think that they're going to be better than Aurora, who so many more people hyped in the offseason.
Okay. You just said deeper than where they were playing before, so I'm just wondering where the limit is
before the player break.
Okay.
Yeah. They fell off a bit. And they also had that whole thing with the stand-ins and jail and all that jazz. In fact, it feels like a million years ago the real MOUZ played, didn't it? Anyway, if you are just some fucking penniless peasant, then that's the end of the show for you. Enjoy it. See you, dickhead. See you next week. If you are a lord and lady of the subscribers of LFN, the elite, the creme de la creme of society, then we'll see you in the exclusive Q&A that's about to start any moment now. Welcome. If you are hearing me now, you are a subscriber, which means already you know all about subscription because you already subscribed. This already has it going. But please submit questions, because here's the thing. There will not be a Q&A if there are no questions submitted. I'm not going to fake it and be like, no, Billy wanted that has to be a real question. We want it to be like actually what you guys want to ask. So I've got a bunch of questions for you here. And obviously just go into the Discord channel and make sure you say Snake and Banter though, because if you put a random one, I'm also cynical. Maybe if you just put one with no show, I'll pick it for a show where there weren't any because I like money. Anyway, thank you for the money.